Hi, Amy.
Hi.
I didn't know social workers presented either.
I could not stop laughing. Honestly, I was reading that. I'm like, I really needed a laugh. I needed that. It was good for the soul.
I know, wasn't it? I mean, sometimes, I don't know, sometimes they say really insightfully silly things that just make you giggle. I like the fact that I just got an email from a mother.
I love those.
Who's saying, you know, my daughter wants to come there, but my daughter wants to come to Buffalo State, but I need to know like how many of her credits are going to transfer. Here's like her transcript from, you know, Niagara Community College. And I'm like, well, I don't really make those decisions.
Mhm.
That would be the admissions office. So the mother writes back and goes, thank you for the information. I was told to reach out to you. I'm like, good job, admissions. Love it. Why don't you send a prospective student's parents on a runaround? Like,
That's a great way
how would
to
I
introduce
know
them.
what credits are going to transfer over from her community? She's got an associate arts degree, so that will help. Please make sure, you know, I told the mom, you know, please make sure that she's, you know, requested that her conferred degree transcripts make it over.
That was a big issue a couple of years ago. It was a nightmare. We
Yeah.
didn't, you know, most of our students sent over incompleted transcripts that didn't indicate that they were conferred a degree. So by the time we got to them in the fall, we had to say, okay, get these degrees over here
Yep.
so they can readjust your IF stuff.
It's mind-boggling. I mean, we had a couple of seniors this last year
Mhm.
that when I looked at it, that I said, you know, and when I sent out the little notes to everybody, I said, you know, check this because I think the student probably has an associate arts degree somewhere.
Yeah.
Enough. You know, we had a couple of them that were like, oh, really? It's like, yeah, really.
Yeah, really.
Well, and I had one who I told that he needed to transfer his final transcripts, I think like 12 times between fall and beginning of spring semester. And I'm like, well, since you haven't done that, your options are you can take all of these extra courses and it's going to take you an extra semester and a half to graduate. And he's like, what? I didn't know I needed to do that. And I'm like, good thing I only documented it every effing time.
Was this a junior?
No, it was a senior.
Oh, see.
Oh wow.
See, yeah. Come on now. Come on now. You're old enough to know better.
They've been told that 1,000 times.
They've been told that 1,000 times. They were told in their field interviews. They were told. Okay.
I know it's mind-boggling, really. It's just mind-boggling. It's just, you know, well, and I'm sure that student, at least one of them I know about, was told like, oh, I don't know, junior year, senior year. It's like, and then they just like, oh, I don't know, am I supposed to do something with that?
Yes.
Yes, you are. Actually, you are. That means you're going to have to do something. Mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. All right.
Oh my God.
So we'll give people a few more seconds,
Okay.
minutes, whatever. Hold on a minute. If you have I think I sent out the knowledge, skills, and
Mhm.
Up there. Okay. Do that afterwards.
well,
job.
Berg, I don't know where you are.
Oh, Barry Coiner did this one. Okay.
Still looking at it. Well, fun.
But I don't have the computer doing my Zoom meeting.
Oh gosh. Sorry, not thinking.
It's like I don't have a computer to do
Right, I'll
my
check when
Zoom.
you're done.
When my homework?
Oh,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
I was trying to read history into language.
Kath,
Yeah.
Come on back.
have you had the opportunity to take a look at the social work portfolio by Barry Coiner? It's an actual workbook that talks about planning, assessing, and documenting lifelong learning in a dynamic profession.
No, why don't you send me the link
Let me see.
or whatever it is
Yeah,
that might be.
yeah,
looking at.
yeah, I'm doing it right now through the chat. Come on, chat, open up. Paste. And Mazada, it's coming to you now.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I have a copy of this in my office. I think Chris gave it to me at one point in time to take a look at. But when I think about 496 and 7, maybe this book can be cut in half of it done in the fall, half done in the spring, and still meet the competencies at the same time. And Barry's involved in this, so it has a really nice table of contents.
Sure. Hold on a second. Trying to do a couple things at once, and that is always dangerous.
It's okay.
So I think one of the things that, okay, let me stop talking.
Okay.
Okay.
I had a copy of this. Yeah, like I said, I think I have a copy of this in my office. Yeah.
What's the year on that, Karen?
I don't know. Let me see if I can find it for you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. 2002, too old.
Yeah,
But it's
too
a
old.
good book.
Yeah, I mean, there may be an updated version, but and we can certainly, maybe we can do that. We can check and see if he's got an updated version.
I don't think so because here it's $93, and if it was an updated version, they would have the updated version at that $93 price point.
We'll see. Okay, never mind. We won't be doing that.
Oh, that's too bad because it's really a nice one.
All right. Yeah, I usually like his stuff. I do like his stuff. So, okay. So why don't we go ahead and get started? I think everybody's here. Hold on a minute. Okay, so good work this morning. We've got some decisions made. That's always a good thing. And now we're going to start the fun stuff. I mean, I've been looking forward to doing this building because I think everybody's had enough experience with our courses and our students and or holding on to ideas for 5 years or whatever. And I think this will be really exciting to do. So I don't know. So a couple of things. One is like we want to keep in mind what are sort of the ideas that we might have for some things for 496 and 497 to kind of think about. Obviously, it's still a seminar course. Obviously, there's, the seminar course really is the idea is that the students grasp ownership over sort of engaging in self-awareness and evaluation of what they know and what they don't know. And certainly we can tickle their, give them ticklers. We can talk about case management. We can review skills. We can do whatever. But the seminar idea was that they would then be able to say, this is really, I got this, but I really need this. And maybe it's a high level or skill. But I think that incorporating some projects or a project or whatever from that we might be thinking about for our capstone and bringing stuff together might help with getting them to think about what they know and what they don't know. I don't know, just a suggestion. So a couple of things that we want to talk about, so in the agenda, the skills, knowledge, and competencies for our core courses. So up to now, these are our core courses. And that is, we agreed that we would keep it intro to sorry, I'm in the wrong department. Social work, social justice course, equity and diversity course. And then we had our 4 courses that were foundation in social work, applied social work practice, social work in action, and evidence-based practice. Now, we also talked about incorporating meso, micro, meso, macro in all of those courses. So once we decide what's going to go into those courses, then we can take a look at what skills, knowledge we still think our students would need. And we can build electives or whatever. So if you guys remember, let me just put this up to refresh. And let me make sure that
I sent you another one, Kathy. I think there's a more updated version to it.
Okay, great. So I've made it so that anyone can share, just FYI. So our working premise was that this was tied, remember we also tied this to the general's practice model, but that our core courses would be 21 to 24 courses. So if we're thinking about piloting, so just think about this for a minute. We're piloting 496, 497. Our electives would be 15 to 18. So it depends on how we disperse. If we have, we add a few core courses, then we would reduce the number of electives. And then field remains at 12. So it's, total. So six in the spring, 6 in the fall, and 6 in the spring. So keeping in mind also some of the things that Karen said earlier, which is, we need to make sure that we have at least 33 credits of higher ed, higher ranked courses, possibly up to 45. So let's think about that. I think we should be able to get there since we have 51 credits and the only one that's not an upper level course is 220. So if you take 51 minus 3, that leaves us 48. So we still have 48 credits that we're dispersing amongst these courses. So I think we should be okay, but we'll keep tabs on that. So has anyone had a chance to sort of take a look at one of the documents that got sent out? Jessica, I think, generated this document, which is looking at these are, no, this is all proposed. This is all proposed. The idea of some of the breakdown of possible places that our skills, based on our skills, knowledge and knowledge chart that we created, taking that and sort of interspacing it among some of the proposed courses. Did anyone have a chance to look at that? That's what's up on your screen right now.
I mean, I looked through everything you sent me. This one I remember looking at before, so kind of, you know, just like read through it and skimmed a little, because I know I won't remember everything, even if I read every word.
There's also one that we have to work off of that broke out micro, meso, and macro in each course as well. Because we want to try to do those 3 levels in each courses. And one of the ways that we were trying to take a look at that, and of course, I don't have that one up with me right now. Let me go and take a look.
Kathy, are you just asking like if we're okay with how it's split up? Because we did look at the faculty.
Yeah.
So
We sort of have to start somewhere. Like we have to stick our hand in the water somewhere along the way. So, okay, let's stop sharing this crap. We need to sort of start with something. And we have a couple of documents that we can work off of that might help us organize our thinking. Because there's a lot, when you look at the charts that have been generated, there's a lot of information on those charts. There's like a ton. And I'm not asking that we tick and tie every little thing that we wrote down, right? But if we can start with either skills and knowledge in the courses or micro, meso, macro in each course, like whichever you think would be the best way to just start the discussion on how we're going to organize these courses, let me know. Because this is where the like big thinking, now it's coming, now we're sort of trying to create the ice cream cone to come down into the cone. Yeah. And we need to stay very focused. Yes, Karen?
I have a question to ask Kathy. Is it possible for the diversity and equity course, can we have it be a mandatory course from another department? Case in point, sociology, they have those great African-American courses, African-American and family, diversity. Can we turn that into a required course under our curriculum and still have it count towards our diversity course?
So the question, that's a good question, Karen. I don't know that off the top of my head, I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
The issue is, so one is incorporating courses that are accepted into our program by other things.
Right.
You see that a lot with minors.
Yep.
I am not, so I'm not going to speak from some kind of intelligent position here. That may be something that we can look at and investigate.
Possibly, Jim. Possibly. I was just thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I was just trying to figure out. What, like, you know, where the benefit would be in doing that. So that's what I was just wondering. Okay.
Yeah, I was just thinking out loud.
So
I think when we do like the certificates or the micro credentials or whatever we end up doing, because even for our minor right now, it's an interdisciplinary. But Karen, I don't know if you can answer this question, but you had mentioned, and maybe it doesn't matter, that for the major there has to be at least 33 upper level, possibly 45. So can those be from outside the department?
I believe they can be if it's a required course. If we turn it into a required of the department.
So you guys keep in mind 2 things. One, if we require a course from another department, we need to have a conversation with that department.
Right.
Because you can't all of a sudden, like they have, like when do they offer it? How do they offer it? Do they have enough faculty to be able to accommodate, you know, whatever 45
Mhm.
social work majors cruising into their courses.
Yeah.
You know, we need to, there's some additional prep work, so we can create a list in the parking lot to ask those kinds of questions. But I'm going to redirect us back to, not to say that that's not a good thing to explore, but if we don't understand what our core courses are going to be, it's going to
Right.
be really difficult for us to kind of organize ourselves around, even if we wanted to go to women gender studies, Africana studies, whatever, and pull different courses in. So we need to be clear about what the social work department's courses are, right?
Okay.
Because first, if we do that first, then we can stand out, okay? Because there might be, we might offer, you know, other options for them to take electives, not necessarily in the social work department, right? Like, so if we're going from, as Jessica keeps saying, we're going from 10, 17, what are we going from? 17 to 7? Whatever it is, we're reducing the number of core courses that are required. And then we have electives that they can fill out their thing. So we can take a look at that, right? So good question, Karen. You just
Thank
put
you
it, let's
for
put it in.
entertaining it.
Yeah, no. Let's just put it in the parking lot for a second, okay? I got a parking lot list, and that's one of them. So outside courses being used for, as being accepted as electives, most likely for social credit,
Okay.
maybe?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Karen, did you teach diversity at UB?
Yes.
Do you have a syllabus for this that maybe could
Yes.
give us
Yes.
some, you know,
Well, I'm
this is the
looking,
reference.
I was just over on my bookcase looking at the diversity books that I've used over the years for different things.
Yeah.
And one book is titled Diversity, Readings for Diversity and Social Justice. And I think that will create confusion between the separate social justice course and the other one. But I think the book that would be really good, I just put it in the title, Diversity, Oppression, and Social Functioning, Person and Environment Assessment
Yeah.
and Interventions. It has that interventions word. So I'm going to try to find that book for you and put it in the link before I go pick up Tanya.
Okay,
I,
that's
um,
great, Karen.
I think too, like that I like that incorporates person and environment, but
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm gonna keep like harping on the free resources for students and not using textbooks. I think financially it makes more sense, but I also think there's other resources that are more engaging that they're more likely to actually
Hmm.
read. But that book sounds like it could be good. So Kathy, like would it make sense to start with the intro class and just look at the knowledge and skills and then look at the micro, meso, macro? Like I don't know how deep you want us to dive into each of the courses, but
So
would it make sense to kind of go course by course?
yeah, let me just make a suggestion and or how I was thinking about it.
Okay.
It's going to be really tempting to design the full course, you know, like from soup to nuts, like
Hey.
assignments, books, topics, blah, 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 right? Right now, if we can walk out on end of the day Tuesday or maybe the end of the morning not Monday, Wednesday, which with a clear structure of our program, like here's our core, here's our electives, intro, like we've got our core pretty well written up, right? But then we've got some fuzzy stuff. And if we can make sure that the knowledge and skills are, we've gotten them a home. So these knowledge and skills are going to be in this house. This is knowledge and skills are going to be in this house. So we've got a home for knowledge and skills. That's going to make it a lot easier for us to see kind of where not that we're assessing competencies at the junior level, I'm not saying that, but where we're going to be building the exposure to the competencies. So, and we're in preparation for the capstone courses. Okay. That makes sense to everybody? And most importantly, not most importantly, but one thing is, you know, if we're going to create a pilot thing, a pilot thingy, technical term, for 496, 497, then it's a good idea. So that would be great.
So I just put in the chat, and I don't know if this would be helpful or if it's too detailed, but looking at the knowledge, the skills, micro, meso, macro, what populations, and maybe that's too deep of a dive right now, diversity, how does it support research? How does it support writing? How does it support generalist practice, case management, social justice? But I don't know if any of those are like,
So I think you've got some good ideas. I think let me just say, this is kind of how I'm thinking about it. And you guys can tell me to jump in the lake. If we're looking at it, I would suggest taking the courses that we've agreed upon that are going to be core.
mhm.
And if we're looking at the chart, just look at the chart. Does that make sense? The knowledge and skills stuff that we're talking about there, does that make sense?
Okay.
If we then can flip to the micro, meso, macro, does that make sense? Because if it does, we've done a lot of the preliminary work already. Like, don't underestimate all of the work that we've been shipping away this semester. I don't want to start from scratch because you guys, we've done a lot of work. I mean, I was looking at this stuff going, holy crap. So if we're in agreement, like we're going to have an opportunity to fine tune the courses themselves and to do drill down. Like, what, you know, how do they support, like your questions are really good ones, Jessica, but how do they support writing? How do they support this? How do they support that? We're going to be able to drill down on that. But if we start drilling down, we're never going to get through this.
Okay.
Because we don't even know what our electives are going to be right now, right? So I would like us to have an outline. Doesn't have to be super detailed, but enough. So let me put this back up.
Kind of, can you say just an outline? I'm just keeping notes first. An outline of the curriculum or an outline of those core courses?
Well, we're going to need to do, we're basically kind of both, Jim, but
Okay.
most importantly, an outline of the program.
Okay.
Time to drill down, like in the fall, it's going to be working, it's going to be like a hardcore press in the fall to get courses nailed down, because then they need to be presented, that we need to create the program revision that's going to go up to the Senate, you know, up to the SOP. And you know what I mean? Like we have a lot of preliminary stuff we need to do in the fall so we can, at least as far as I know, that then we can activate revision to the program starting either at the end of fall or the beginning of spring.
Kathy, I found the micro, meso, macro.
Oh, did you? Okay, can you share that, Jess?
Do you want to start with that one or with the knowledge and skills?
Can we start with micro, meso, macro, because there is stuff in there that's connected to the skills and knowledge.
Yeah,
Guys- What's that?
I think that when I made it, what are you guys seeing right now? Are you seeing meso, macro, micro?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think when I made this, I pulled from the knowledge and skills, I think.
That's what I thought when I looked at it.
So well, maybe not, because there's no knowledge or
Oh,
skill.
wait, we don't have any there.
Yeah, just kidding.
Okay, well, you know what? Let's start with skills and knowledge first, because we can always highlight the skills and knowledge that are connected to micro, meso, macro while we're working on that chart.
Is that
So,
the right thing then?
Yeah. Is that it? Yeah, knowledge and skills. Can everybody see?
Is that big enough? Okay. So these I had just copied and pasted from that bigger list that we had come up with as a group. So I don't think there's anything new on here. The
So,
only thing that I would add to, well, maybe not the only thing. like, I think it's important to talk about and introduce the code of ethics, the social work values.
Yeah.
Not doing like a deep dive into the history, but explaining like the foundation of social work. It's like the micro and the psychology plus the macro, the sociology. And we kind of saw that play out with COS and settlement houses. And then the New Deal like created a bunch of government jobs for social work. And even talking about a little bit about like the difference between like introducing the idea of generalist practice and how at a bachelor level, like if you graduate with a BSW, this is what you're able to do. In MSW, you do this. And then you would need to get licensed to go on to be able to do like private practice or clinical. Not in super detail, but just kind of introducing that because I don't think the students ever really get that information. So that so far, like as I'm building this summer class, like I have everything that's on here plus those things I just said in that intro.
Gus, I am trying to get you enrolled in the course that is based after
Yeah.
the DuBois book. Yeah. Yeah, we talked, I mean, who knows exactly what they all thought when they left, but yeah, goal was to get students like to really understand what generalist social work was. Because students do come in and only know what the micro is, many of them, right?
Right.
Like, so yeah, so micro, meso, macro, generalist, critical thinking, person and environment is introduced in the book. There were a couple of the idea that ethics, yeah, the code of ethics, social work values are introduced, some of the history of social work, and then some of the history, yeah, like different aspects of the history are built with the text. An introduction to diversity concepts. There's like just touching on a lot of different things. Like, hopefully by the end of the course, they can they have a sense of what social work is, but not at a generalist level. Yeah. What jobs are available. That wasn't in the book.
What was the last thing you just said?
I said, we looked a little bit at what jobs there are in social work,
Yeah.
but that wasn't based on the textbook. Like most of the things were based on the textbook.
And we're having a little hard time hearing you, Berg. You're warbly.
Okay. Huh. Is this any better?
Yes.
Okay.
So clearly we're saying, and first of all, this is all knowledge because we're not working on skills here. It's not, they need to know things before they can start doing things. So this is like, what is social work? Like, that's the big question. What is social work?
Yeah.
It's more than child protective. It's more than just working with people. It's impacting policy and all that. So like, that's a nice segue into what social justice, they're going to take social justice. Oh, we have to think about how we want to sequence all this stuff too. So as we're working on these courses, think about that.
So is there anything that's in here for intro that people think shouldn't be in here or anything missing that people think should be in here?
I think we did a little of ecological theory. I think that was another one. I'm trying to remember. There were a couple.
I was gonna ask if we should include like empowerment and strengths based like introducing that or no?
You guys, this is an intro class. If you want to do you, so I want you to think like we start introducing, you can, if you want to talk about person and environment, that's key. Where we go from there in terms of strengths and power, empowerment, self-determination, I personally think that that's expanding beyond what an intro course needs to be.
Okay. I think, Kathy, I think,
That's just me.
when when I am talking about like the values and dignity and worth of a person, I think that's where I would kind of like sneak it in. So it wouldn't be like a whole lecture on strengths, you know, the strengths perspective, but it would be when I'm talking about the value of dignity and worth of a person, that means that we look at the client as the expert, that we look for their strengths, not just the problem that they're coming in with, that our job is to kind of empower them, not to take over. So I guess, you know, just on that level, like very basic, does that make sense? Or do you think that's still going to?
Well, I think that if you're going to use the values, which I think is a perfect segue, I mean, it sets the stage. So think about it as a building block. Keep in mind that this might be, I guess I'm just very leery of, I don't know why it just struck me. So maybe I'm going to just sit with it for a minute before I say anything. I don't disagree with you. I just, yeah, I'm just going to sit with it. I'm going to shut up now. Just going to think about it.
I can jump in and say what is being done based on the, you know, and Kathy, I'm not sure exactly what is changed on it, but the version that follows the textbook, there's this section about empowerment that also combines, it's proposed that there's 4 phases of practice: engagement, assessment, intervention, and evaluation. And then the textbook, so like combines teaching empowerment with these 4 phases and explains what empowerment means for each of these 4 phases.
I think for me, that belongs in foundations of social work. Like the elements of the helping process or the development of whether you're building a policy or a community response or you're working on a micro, meso, macro level. If you start to work into assessment, planning, that starts to move into, that's a whole different, that goes beyond an intro course, I think. Because remember, lots of people take this course that aren't ever even going to go into social work. They might be doing the minor. I just think we have to be careful. This is not, you've got the foundations course that's going to theoretically move into those deeper areas. Like, how do we do social work? This is what is social work, not how we do social work. Maybe that's just me, so.
No, I think the challenge is it is an MSW textbook and a lot of the material is still relevant, but like I know I've tried in both intro and 317 to cut out a lot of material and to try to make it ESW. But yeah, like if we don't do this as a group, like how do we even know what that is? Like,
Can I think I think that there's something, because I'm looking at Jess's chart, and we have up there what is generalist practice, and I think there's the 2 parts of this. There's what Kathy's talking about, where you get into the application, but I think in terms of if this is intro to social work and discussing those 4 phases in terms of this is you know, kind of like teaching, like, you know, if you're a mechanic, they teach you about the way that an engine works, the way that, you know, gas combusts, but it's not teaching you how to fix the engine. It's just telling you this is how it works. And then down the road, you get into the more technical stuff. So I think that, because I think that that what Berg is laying out is kind of helping students understand from the very beginning that it's a very structured process. It's not a free for all. It's not like, and something that I know, Kathy, that bothers you. It's not just that you sit down with your friends and they talk to you and they trust you, and that's social work, you know. So I think there could be some value to delving into it, as long as we're really clear that we're not going into the clinical side of it, of the how to, but setting the parameters for, so people understand social work is a very structured, empirically driven, boundary driven kind of process that goes through a predicted, sequencing. It's not chatting, empathically.
That's fine. I mean, both of you are making really good points that I don't necessarily disagree. I just don't want to turn this course into a skills course.
Oh yeah, totally.
Because skills need to be, that's in a different course.
Yeah.
I guess I'm not advocating for it. I'm saying that right now this course is based off of a textbook, and there's exam questions that are provided, and I've taken a bunch of those out, but now students are going to eventually like pass on the answers. So we may be moving away from the textbook, which might be a positive thing. Like there was also policy. There's a chapter on policy. And it's threaded throughout the course too. It's part of the meso, macro.
I mean, I do think that's important. I think that it's natural for people, or most people, when they hear the word social work, they don't think at all about meso or macro practice. They just think child protective services. They're going to come take your kids, right? Like it's very, very narrow. And I would think that what we can do to try to expand the understanding of the profession would be key to this course, because depending on when we ask people to take this, of course. So I agree that there should be like helping them understand that there's a process to social work, that it's not just a free for all, that there's elements to the helping, and helping isn't just individual work. There's lots of ways to do social work. And I think that's what is the strength of this particular course, is exposing them to the different ways that social work is already influencing their lives, and they probably don't even know it.
Is it, I wonder if when we go through the courses, especially because something like this, when we're talking about the topics, it might get too big. But if we know that in Intro to Social Work, we have 3 themes we want to hit on: the history of the profession itself, and what social workers do, and then kind of an introduction to the idea of micro, meso, macro, and then whatever, if things fit into those, but staying with that, so that we know that nowhere in there is anything about skills. So we know that in Intro to Social Work, the themes that we want to hit on are avoiding anything having to do with blurring the lines between learning about the profession versus learning about the skills of the profession. Because I could see that this could be tough to go through with each course, especially when we get into the courses that we're not currently teaching, where we're just kind of thinking like the social justice course. That could be really difficult to kind of, if we don't anchor ourselves to some themes, to make it difficult, it would make it very difficult to kind of get through.
I think part of the problem that we have with our current curriculum is that we didn't have discussions in this way. So I think these discussions can be tricky, but I think they're super important. And to be honest, this conversation right now is super helpful for me, because as I'm setting up Intro for the summer, I had questions about like, okay, well, how far do I go into this? Kathy, right now I have one slide that says like skills a social worker needs, and it says like it's a helping process. You establish a rapport, you explore clients' concerns, you set goals, you make referrals, and then the relationship is terminated. So it's like, it's one slide, it's super basic, but it sort of introduces like these are the skills that you would need if you continue in our program. And I'm not developing those skills at all. I'm not even necessarily defining those skills. I'm just saying like, this is what but I think, but I was really kind of struggling with that, because I wasn't sure how how far into it to go and where the crossover would be with the foundations course.
Mhm.
So I actually think we're all saying the same thing,
Mhm.
that introduce it as the knowledge, but don't go into building skills at all. And really just say like you need skills to do social work. It's not just
Mhm.
because your friends come to
Right, right,
and
Yeah.
and really like leave it at that. Like
Yeah.
don't. So are you good with that? I mean, this is also something that as maybe this is something that in the fall as I'm teaching, I guess I'm not teaching intro, is Berg is teaching intro in the fall. And as I teach it in the summer, and then you're teaching 422, Kathy.
yeah,
So this might be something that we continue to kind of like,
sort out,
yeah,
yeah,
or
I-
at least we have this framework.
yeah,
But this next year, I think what's nice about this next year is it gives us some room to kind of play around with.
Mhm.
Wait a second, this really shouldn't go in here. Or Jess, you really messed them up this summer because I have them in 420 right now in the fall. And they're telling me that you told them, talked about all these skills and now they're all messed up with it. So don't mention them ever again in intro. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I mean, if you guys are, I just trying to keep it at like thinking about who's going to take this course and when do we want them to take this course? Like, is this a course that we want them to take before they even enter our program? We've talked about that. And like if they're in at Buffalo State, so that's just another question and whatever. So, I agree that,
They should, and I think that they should know that if they're going to continue in the program, they're going to have to develop listening skills and writing skills. Like they're going to have to talk to people. They're
You
going
know
to
what?
yeah, that actually, when you talk about skills, thank you, because that got me like that opened up like my little rigid brain here. But it's like, what do they do? Like, besides what do they do, like the areas and the populations and everything, but what are some of the fundamental things you need to be able to do as a social worker? You need to be able to write, you need to be able to talk to people, you need to be able to present, get up in front of people. Like they should hear that. Like
We don't do that.
that they don't really get they get it once they get in the program. But one of the things that more recently I've heard, and maybe it's because they think they should know like everything they're going to, like they got upset when they were like, oh, you mean I'm going to have to record myself, like stuff like that we take for granted because that's how we were trained and that's what we did and we know it and we've been doing this for a long time. But they hear that and that's terrifying. Oh, Amy, need to follow directions, take supervision. Like, as a social worker, what do you need to know about doing its job? Like it's, and
Can
I
I bring
don't
up a
think they
point
really
about
get
this?
that anywhere.
Is
What's
that
that?
one of the things I think that we might need to do before the others is we're kind of operating on the assumption, and I obviously with the intro that's the way, but that it comes before everything else, and so we're already kind of thinking in a linear process that this is this leads to the next one. Maybe we want to put the courses in some kind of order that we're expecting them to take, because then we can figure out where, because I was trying to draw a timeline of, because in our current curriculum it's so sequenced, we can actually say, well, in 301 you do this, and then in 220, and then 301 and 307 and 308. But I know that we were kind of mentioning that it might not be that same type of sequencing, and so we might need to kind of figure out what it is, what is the way that things are going to, that they're going to take them, so we know what we can assume the knowledge they have when they get to a certain class before, because otherwise if we try to design the courses without knowing the sequencing, it might, we might have certain assumptions there that aren't true.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what comes first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah,
Like,
because I was trying to come up with a timeline to think, okay, where would be the overlap when you go from intro to whatever the next course is, so that you're not, stepping into that when you're not going too far, you're not, but I don't actually know what the next course would be that they would take.
Some, right now, students who go to NCCC and a few other like very random schools that do not include ECC, which is where most of our transfer students come from, they are able to transfer over introduction to social work, and it counts for them. Most of our transfer students can't transfer anything over, and they have to take intro with us. And we let sophomores and juniors take intro, obviously. I think also, like, in this same conversation, and maybe I'm jumping ahead, but talking about, like, should this be a gen ed where it meets the requirement for like the social sciences IF, or for something else where it opens it up, where we're getting more students taking it.
Well, when you look at 220, I mean, you look at introduction to criminal justice and you look at introduction to psychology, they're all gen eds. Like they hit a gen ed as well as being a foundational course in the majors. So now that doesn't necessarily fix the problem with transfer students, but it would open it up if we wanted to do that, to say, to make 220 an IF course.
Yeah, I don't know why it's not. I don't know why it's not.
I don't either. And I don't know if it's because, I don't know, Jess, I don't know why. Because it seems logical to me, like, and it's easy enough to do. Like on the course revision, you just check the box, IF, I mean, I don't know what else goes into it, but obviously there's probably a bit more that goes into it than that.
I think a meter has to review it for something, to make sure that it meets the criteria for an IF, but I don't know what the criteria would be. Like,
so that's a parking lot question that we could ask Amitra about. Like what goes into an IF and how can we do that? Because if we think that social work 220 would make a good IF course, then let's see if we can get it in there. But to get back to Jim's point, and also the issue of sequencing, it is possible, like if you look at the list of core courses, and you just look at the core list, don't even think about what's in there. To me, if you want to lay the foundation for understanding social work, then your equity and diversity and your social justice courses, I think, need to come first. That's just me. What do other people think?
That makes a whole lot of sense.
And I think that foundations, applied social work and applied social work in action, and evidence-based practice don't necessarily have to be 1, 2, and 3. Although when we were thinking about these initially, it was more like assessment, intervention, and evaluation. But on the other hand, it's 7 courses, right? Like it's not 17 that we're locking in. But let's say the first semester they're with us, they're learning about, oh, that's kind of pretty. Where did you get that?
this is what I do at 4 a.m. when I haven't been able to fall asleep all night. And it's,
So I was looking at that going, wait a minute, that's our stuff. What?
it's both state colors. And I just like these X's mean nothing, right? Like this is what we're talking about right now.
Yeah,
So,
right.
but I agree, Kathy. I put these 3 courses as things that if you're a Buff State student, you could take them as a sophomore. But otherwise, I think that you would need to take them fall semester junior year. And then, and I don't know, maybe we take that out there. And then like these 3 or 4 classes then become spring semester of junior year, and then as seniors you take electives in field. Maybe you take the evidence-based, which is our like research class, in the fall as a senior.
I think that let's say I come in as a transfer student, let's walk through, I'm a transfer student first. If I'm a transfer student and I don't have any, none of my shit transfers in for social work, I think intro, diversity, social justice, and foundation are your first semester. Why? Because intro is going to tell us what social work is. Diversity is going to get you oriented and get your brain thinking about oppression, privilege, and discrimination, which is what that's should be and really needs to be, even though we haven't always been on the right side of history, but should be one of your values. Social justice is taking it out of not just and working with individuals, but opening it up on a meso and macro level. And then the foundations course, if we keep it the way we've been talking about it, is a drill down on ethics, beginning skills, use of self-awareness, emotional intelligence, their self-regulation skills. It's the things that it's them that are going to be necessary to get them together, because you're not going to be able to do anything else. If you pull all those four together, they complement each other rather nicely. And then your second, like, I agree, I think evidence-based practice should be the senior year. Unless people think that with the capstone, they need it before then. And then foundations, and then applied and social work in action, like, are your second semester, and then evidence and whatever else. I don't know. That's the way it feels for me, but I'm open. That's just me. And then they fill in. Like, if you were to write it out like a schedule, their first semester has the most courses that are required. Second semester has a couple of required courses and then more electives. And then it becomes more electives the second year with the focus on the capstone and field.
I like the idea of evidence-based practice being fall of senior year, and this first semester too.
So we have 2 votes for that being in the fall of senior year. Does anyone think it should be in the spring of junior year? Does anyone care? Jim, you look
What
like
happened to
you're
this whole discussion about Jim
Jim,
raised
you
a
look
really
like
important
you're
issue
talking
about sequencing.
lava lamp, and
Yeah, I'm just tripping out over here.
it's reminding me of high school and some late Friday nights.
Yes.
So every time I look at your screen, I'm like, whoa.
So where would, so if we've got first semester junior, first semester, so are we thinking intro, diversity? Kathy, you were saying heavy on the first semester, heavy on the fall semester?
Mm-hmm.
Would we let so Kathy is suggesting that for transfer students brand new to Buff State, they would take all 4 of these classes their first semester with us.
Mm-hmm.
We allow pre-majors to take all 3 of these classes. So if you're a Buff State student, you can take any of these as a sophomore.
Oh, okay.
And then I'm asking, I'm not.
Oh, okay.
I would say no. Like, I think, like, especially the social justice course, sophomores are wonderful people, but they don't have enough yet. Like they need more maturity, they need more exposure to some of this information. Having the diversity course, absolutely fine, great starting point. But doing diversity and social justice at the same time, I think will be problematic and will water down the content, I think, for the people who are going to be in the major. Because it's a bit, I see the content as a bit more advanced than the more introductory version of the intro and the diversity course, which
sorry.
yeah.
No, I was just gonna say, like, I totally appreciate what you're saying, because
Yep.
as you're saying it,
Yeah.
I'm thinking about it would make so much sense for them to really understand diversity before we start talking about social media.
Yes. Yeah. Actually, good point, Amy. Good point. Good point,
Yeah.
Jess.
I
So
knew
if
her
I'm
for
sorry,
a reason.
what?
I knew we hired her for a reason.
Damn. Okay. So Jim's seeing Amy's like, okay. So what if we did this? Intro and diversity can be taken as sophomores, but social justice has to be taken in the major, which makes sense actually, because we're going to tie it to everything else, right? Like we're going to be, one of our bases is social justice. That's one of our, remember our triangle?
I think that we should open up the social justice course to people in other majors, but that they have to be at least juniors. It's just a thought.
Yeah, we could do that. I mean, that's a possibility.
If people hate that thought, but
No, I mean, you can take upper level like sociology credits or upper level criminal justice credits as a social work student, but you can't take any upper level social work credits. I mean, and maybe I don't want to, like, I shouldn't even open this door, but maybe also these 3 classes become required for our minor. So then people in social justice who minor in whatever social welfare or whatever we call it, these 3 are required, and then like 2 social work electives or something, since we'll actually be able to offer electives like legit for the first time in a long time. So I don't know where to like.
I think that makes sense. Why don't we put that, because we've got to discuss that too. So why don't we just list that? And we'll come back to that. That's in our parking lot for today, or not today, but before we end this whole thing. So right now we've got, so the first 4 courses, if you're a transfer student, are going to be these 4. Right? Intro, social justice, diversity, and foundations of social work. And you're supposed to have 5 courses. So if you, they can either take an elective, a social work elective. Right?
Yeah, because we'll be offering, I mean, they could start to do CAS, they could.
Or if they have to pick up IF courses or whatever.
But I guess the only thing we have to be careful with is if I'm a transfer student and I need to take 5 classes, and here's 4 of them, we need to make sure that our electives are listed as, or at least some of our electives are listed as, you either, intro is either a prerequisite or a co-requisite. Right? If it's a prerequisite, then our transfer students won't be able to take any electives because they'll need to finish intro first before they can take any electives. You know, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess that raises the question for our electives. Are they, I'll use this term, are they sort of standalones, or?
Was
Like,
335 and like 3 Mark's 3, was it 335 and 4 or something?
420. Yeah.
Those were what were the prereqs for those?
Sophomore, no, junior. You had to be a junior.
Yeah. But it was kind of open, right? So it was open to non-majors and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that seems to be good.
Yeah. I had a lot of sociology students take that class.
Yeah.
How did you handle issues around diversity, privilege, social justice in that? I know it's not in this new curriculum. I'm just curious, Mark, like any insights that you have would be helpful.
Do you mean in that elective class?
Yeah, in your elective class. Or was it primarily micro focused?
Well, it was the
Working with
family,
families,
so
right?
from that point of view, it was meso, I guess you could say.
Right, I'm sorry.
But yeah.
You know, I
No,
think
we did spend a lot of time on diversity. That was a big part of the class. Because obviously you've got diverse families that you're
Yeah.
gonna be. But Jessica, I think I interrupted you.
no, I cut you off because I'm that person. I was just gonna say, like in sociology, right? Like they're doing that macro stuff, so they may have taken, or they should have taken classes that touch on diversity and things like that, right? But the working with the families and the more like micro type of things, like they're going to come in and not know that, versus if a psychology or criminal justice student took social work with families, they're not going to have that like social justice diversity orientation in the same way that I think a sociology student would at least be familiar with it before they end up
Yeah.
that elective. So, I mean, there might be electives that we offer that we say they have to have intro and diversity or intro and social justice, or I think when we get to that point, we can maybe come back to this.
Yeah, because some electives might be, maybe there's going to be some electives we're going to want people to walk towards. So giving some flexibility on those electives versus having, you know, prerequisites that the student may not be able to have at that moment. So let's revisit, let's come back to that question of electives and the question of what prerequisites would be required for any of the electives that we're going to offer. How about that? Can we come back to that?
Yeah.
You've got, Jess, you got, does that make sense? You look like you're staring at me like I'm speaking Martian.
No, it makes sense. I was trying to find my the other chart so I can put in here that we want to look at prerequisites for electives. So that when we get to that point in the chart, we can circle back to it.
So
I think that we're sorry.
And I do think that incorporating those 3 courses into the minor makes a lot of sense.
Which ones?
Introduction to social work, diversity and equity, and social justice. Those 3 should be part of our minor.
Yeah, that was my one good thought for the day. I'm tapped out now.
Come on, you can come up with at least one more.
I've made my contribution. So I see, Karen, I see that you're back. We were just talking about the sequence, and to just state this super quickly, we, I think, have kind of agreed that pre-majors can take intro and diversity as sophomores. Transfer students first semester would take intro, diversity, social justice, and foundations. Then as juniors in their spring semester, they would take the applied social work and social work in action. And then as a senior in the fall, they would take evidence-based practice, which is the research with the field seminar, and then whatever we do with like capstone would be somewhere in here as well. Just to catch you up to speed, that's kind of.
Okay, Kathy, did you get a vote on that? So if you got a vote on that, here's my hand up.
Your hands up.
Supporting that.
Well, we were just kind of pulling it together when you walked in the room, so your
Okay.
time is perfect. And is Tanya all settled? Because,
Oh, I don't have to take care of Tanya.
oh,
Tanya,
okay, cool.
Tanya,
Did you not forget? Didn't we have this conversation
You
that
know-
Tanya's 11 going on 21? I know I've had this conversation
Yeah, you're
repeatedly
right.
with you
You're right.
guys. Tanya has her own situation between 2 and 3. She's laying down playing with the iPad. 3 o'clock, she's going to do her homework, come to me at 4 and say, okay, what else do I need to do? So she's upstairs. If she needs me, she can come back downstairs.
I think I need to be in that. I need to have that schedule.
I need that too. Yeah.
So does this seem like the basic structure? Because then we're going to fill in. Because then when you start to look at things, it makes it a little easier to think about the structure of our program. Do you know what I'm saying, guys? So, hold on a minute.
And I like the idea that in the spring semester, it gives the students the opportunity to take a certificate program. So they have 2 required courses they're taking, but they can also take 2 certificate courses and finish the certificate program in their senior year.
Yeah, well, it also gives them the chance, if we develop a 4+1, normally the 4+1, the 2 courses that are required to transition them into a 4+1 are usually taken the senior year also.
Yeah.
So-
So there's a lot of open
Yeah.
opportunity.
So let me ask this question, you guys.
Sure.
Before we vote on this part, because I think this intuitively, this just makes sense and it's nice and balanced. Are we gonna retain the fall start only situation?
I think it makes sense.
I think it does. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jessica.
I'm just considering how many transfer students we get. I think we have more transfer students than like Buff State sophomores that come into our program. So if we don't have a fall start, I think that's going to create a lot of issues for them and for us. But I think that the complaint that a lot of students had was that the structure was so rigid, there was no flexibility.
Mhm.
Right.
But this opens it up where they have flexibility to take electives every semester. So I don't think it will feel as rigid to them, in my opinion.
Mhm.
I agree.
And the other part of that, if we make it rolling enrollment, then that puts responsibility on us to teach all of these courses every semester. And I don't think we have the manpower to do that. I go back to the same situation where we got stuck, not thinking. We were running old program and new program at the same time. We brought in adjuncts and they weren't as prepared to teach the old program versus the new program. It was very, very overwhelming for us as faculty, but also very overwhelming for the students.
If we,
I think
so why don't we do this?
if we think
If,
about if we think about how many students just in the past year, like I don't know what happened in the past year or two, but the amount of students who forgot to register for 422, or now they're trying to register for 317 but they never took 301 or something ridiculous, right? Like that seemed to happen a lot. And I think that if we offer every class every semester, we're going to have a hard time tracking, okay, well, you missed this, you didn't take this. I think it's going to be a total headache. But does anyone think it shouldn't be sequenced like this?
I like this.
I think that having it sequenced with a fall start only, and I know that there's a lot of opinions about these kinds of things, is that it's an anchor point for the program. And we build, if we build this and then at the end of the day, we come back and we ask that question again and we're like, oh no, we could do that. Okay, fine, but I agree. I don't think we've got the, okay, that's really horrible. I think, Tori, don't throw up on people. I think that
Where's Tucker?
all these animals, no hairballs. I think that, let's stay with a false start only, and then let's see how it falls out.
Mhm.
So if we stay with a false start only and we use this structure, is everybody okay with this structure and a false start only?
Mhm.
Okay, everybody
Okay,
who's in
good.
agreement.
Bio's in there. Okay.
If you're in
I-
agreement with the structure and a false start only, raise your paw. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. I can't. see
Will
Berg
will
and
the
Amy.
video get everybody?
I don't know. Berg, oh, Amy's got serious, and Berg, do you have animals?
What?
Do you have any animals?
Oh,
That
no.
counts.
You have a child who is.
Oh my God, I should have asked that question. You don't have animals. All right. Okay, well, we're not gonna, no judging. All right, okay, so this is our program structure right at the moment. So if you were to write this out, if we do that, you have an open spot for an elective in the fall, you have 3 open spots for electives in the spring. You have 1 elective spot in the fall of your senior year. 3, 4, wait, 1, 2, 3, 9. Yeah. And you have, because I
Wasn't it
can't
2?
add,
Wouldn't you have 2 elective spots in fall and spring? Senior year?
well, field is 6 and evidence base is 3. And right now we're doing a capstone 3. So that's 12 plus 3
okay.
is 1.
Well,
And
keep
then-
in mind really quickly with field, 3 credits are on campus. The other 2 are the other 3 are in the agency. So in essence, while it's a 6-credit course, they're only meeting with us once during the week. So most of the students see that as a blessing versus taking 5 courses. So in their mind, while it's 6 credits, they would see themselves being able to do another elective course because they've been doing that the past couple of years with the mental health course and the family course.
That's true, Karen. That is a possibility. It depends on what ultimately what we think as a senior capstone project is going to entail. So they
Okay.
still, no, good point, because you're right. They meet once, they meet like it's like it's like an evening class, right?
Mhm.
So they really have room in their schedule for another elective. Even, I
Mhm.
mean, so technically, if we just went by credit, you have room for an elective in the fall and you have room for 2 electives in the spring.
Right.
So it allows for certificates, it allows for 4+1s, right?
Yeah.
And it allows for specialization because now we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 elective spots, which is 21 electives. 21 credits of elective, sorry, 21 credits of elective.
And even with the 21 electives, if they're at the 300 and 400 level and we're teaching them, that gets even though they're electives, they're 300 and 400 levels. So it gets us into that 33, 45 spot I talked about earlier.
Yep, we will be fine with
It
that.
covers us. Yeah.
It'll cover that. It also gives them a chance to decide, and then we'll organize the electives. So the question then becomes we'll have to do a rotation on electives because we're not going to be able to offer every single elective,
Mhm.
you know what I mean, every single semester. Right? So they're like, maybe it's every other year, or I don't know, we'll figure that one out. That's a micro thing. But if we offered a certificate in case management, like we've been talking about, right? Like there might be, if we offer a certificate in I don't know, my favorite, environmental justice. If we offer a certificate in community organizing or whatever, you know, like, I'm not saying we do all these certificates at once. I'm not suggesting that. But if we have a case management certificate at the very least, right, it gives them an opportunity to maybe specialize in something. Because that's one of the things that came out, and granted, it's just one sample of seniors, but they wanted more flexibility. They wanted to tailor their to interests. If we do let's say we do a joint course with criminal justice, because, you know, social work in law enforcement and policing is huge. There are programs all over the country that are starting to pilot this, right? And one of them, by the way, is piloting peers, not even using social workers, but we're coming from a peer perspective. So we have like some creative room here now to create some great electives so that they can tailor based on interest, right? Case management with families and kids, whatever, you know, family violence, you know, blah, blah, you know, we could do all sorts of cool stuff. There could be a specialized international policy course elective.
There could be, and this might be a terrible idea, but I said to Amy, I would nominate her to have a research elective if we ended up cutting out a bunch of stuff and have students, if there are students who really are stoked about research on a different level, make it an elective and have evidence practice. Yeah.
I also think that international course, shoot me later, but I'm thinking about the 2022 competencies and how there is this strong push and focus on international social work education in some kind of way. If we offer that kind of course as an elective to be incorporated into a certificate, then that would put us in a position to address the one area of the component of that 2022 that they would expect from all departments.
Karen, it also would fulfill the global engagement IF for students, which I think most of our students don't necessarily need because they have the language, but I always have a handful of students as seniors that haven't met that requirement, and they're trying to scramble to take like Spanish 101 and 102 as a senior. So I think I'm right there with you. I really think we should consider that being a certificate.
Of course.
So keep in mind that as we work through this, there are going to be like a tier 1 electives and then like tier 2 electives, because we can change our electives. You know what I mean? Like, depending on what we find students tend to gravitate towards, or the ones that, you know, like as we begin to get more experience with offering electives, you know, if all of a sudden our mental health and addiction course just fills like constantly, like people are like trying to get in, you know, okay, so that may be this cohort, but let's say next cohort, it's all about environmental justice, social justice, domestic violence, you know what I mean? Like, so we can create a portfolio of electives that, depending on usage, we can make some decisions about that. So everybody's good with the structure that we've got so far? Yes?
Kathy, at some point we'll have to figure part-time students too, like how will they fit into the structure?
Yes, good point, Mark. Good point.
They're not allowed to take electives.
I know.
That's how they.
Well, you know, they're elective choice, like part-time students. So that depends on kind of how we rotate stuff, but we should keep that in mind. Yeah. So the question then becomes so the good news about this sort of like reduced schedule is that if I was a part-time student and I'm taking intro and diversity one semester and I enter the program, I can take social justice and foundation, like some of it, because we've got, and then spring, we've got 2 courses, you know what I mean? Like they'll be ready then to move into, you know,
elective courses, and then field year.
Yeah. And I think that in some ways, this type of schedule that we're putting together might actually make it a little
Easier for them.
for
I-
them.
Yeah.
Oh,
I agree.
I do agree. Yeah.
Because like right now, if you can only take 2 courses a semester, like you have to fill your schedule with electives, which presumes that they are not a transfer student.
Right.
I mean, they are a transfer student, but they're not. But anyway, I think this might make it easier, but we'll work out a part-time schedule too. So that's a good point. Good point. All right. So
So are we good with intro? I feel like,
yeah.
okay.
Okay, so now we're moving into, so Karen, we were just capturing, just so you know, this is all gonna get written up as we work through it and everybody will, but we don't like, so this is sort of the knowledges, there's a lot of drill down here, but it'll give, Jessica's gonna pilot some of these things this summer.
Mm-hmm.
And then we can pilot more. Berg's teaching 220 in the fall. So whatever happens in the summer then gets incorporated into the fall. So by the time we could actually be so far ahead of the game that by the time we're like, oh yeah, 220, we got that. Let's put that in the hopper, getting ready for program revision.
Yeah.
Right. So equity and diversity, named after Dr. Karen Clinton Jones, our I always, whenever I hear diversity and equity, I always think of Dr. Karen
Clinton Jones.
too.
I always think of her.
I think about Clinton
too.
Jones.
I mean, God bless her. So,
I'm sure she's spending her time thinking about us too.
well,
Isn't she at Fredonia right now? thinking
no,
about us?
she's at Binghamton.
Oh, I
she's
thought
at
she was at
Binghamton.
Fredonia. Oh, wow.
No. She went the other direction. She went Jackie. She went where Jackie went.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So the other thing that it's in the parking lot, but we're gonna talk to Amitra Wall about the idea, if you guys think it's a good one, of seeing if we can get social work 220 as an IF course.
Yeah, sorry, Karen. I'm kind of making questions on the side here.
Oh,
So we're gonna look into that and see and revisit it.
how
'Cause
very cool is that?
We didn't have any history of why it isn't, but we don't really care because we're rewriting history now anyway. So that's one thing. And so equity and diversity, we're going to talk about that. This is sort of going to take over the social work 301.
Okay.
Okay. Is everybody okay with that? Because we've got to assign numbers to them and we have to use the numbers that we have.
So I think that social work 301 includes more of this stuff than it does this stuff.
All right. Okay. Well, that's easy. Then we'll flip it. We'll call this something else.
The only reason that 301 is a diversity course is because of poverty.
Right.
And,
Right.
I mean, and I mentioned diversity in these conversations, but it's not the focus of the course, really.
So Jessica, could you put underneath social justice, if that one is going to take over and possess 301, could you stick that there? Because otherwise I won't remember. Like the body snatchers is going to go in and take over 301. Okay.
Okay.
So-
And I think with the curriculum revisions that we just did, we probably won't have to do one for intro, and we may not for 301. I think it's really going to be like a matter of like changing the course title and maybe a couple small edits, but that one I think will be super easy. So which one do you want to talk about first, Kathy?
Well,
And
let's.
here's a quick question I have to ask. If courses are IF courses, don't they have to have certain SLOs in them to be IF courses? Wouldn't that change
Not
the
No.
SLO?
Not
Okay.
for Gen Ed, but for diversity, there's 2 SLOs that get
Okay.
the syllabus. Yeah.
Okay. Just
If
thinking
it's
out loud.
Right. And if it's a writing intensive course, there are specific writing intensive SLOs that do need to be incorporated. But none of our none of our courses at this level are writing intensive. We'll have to decide where those writing intensive courses, if they're going to stay with the numbers or not. You know, like as we get further into the discussion.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so which one do you want to do, equity and diversity first, because it's first on the chart here?
Well, actually, I was going to go with social justice,
All right,
since there's more development with that, and then let's open it up for equity and diversity, because that's going to be fun to develop also.
how do I get rid of the like thing on the page?
What thing?
Yes.
Click that. Oh, the page break.
Yeah,
So usually, there you go.
you just click it enough times, it happens.
Yeah, if you click it, it usually it makes it go away.
Like me on the elevator. All right, so for this, it's like all the social movements. I just learned that we have and I don't remember the exact name because it's named after a woman, but there's a LGBTQ archive. It's like the history of LGBTQ history archives, and it's held by our library.
Right, right.
Um,
She
so I
just died, by the way.
Madeline Davis.
Thank you. I was like, what is?
I know. Yeah,
Yeah.
she was wonderful person.
So I think that would be a cool thing for like this class, or maybe some, you know, an elective to kind of dig into. I did reach out to the guy whose face I can see, but name I can't think of, from the library, Eugene.
Eugene Harvey.
Oh, Harvey.
Yeah, I asked him if there's other archives that are part of the library that might be useful for us. And that was like a month ago and he hasn't responded. So I don't know. They must be really busy at the library right now.
Well, they are under construction, Jessica. So maybe they're moving books or
Construction
something,
is done.
right?
Whatever.
But well, actually, this part of the country, like besides having like the Madeline Davis archive, Rochester has the oldest LGBTQ continually publishing paper in the country.
Oh my God.
So the Empty Closet. So there's like, and University of Rochester. So like, there's a lot of history. Well, you know, like Buffalo has a huge amount of history, everything from, you know, oh my God, charity organizations. You've got, you know, Society for Protection and Cruelty of Kids, which, you know, we've got, you know, there's just this area has a huge amount of history that's just very cool.
Yeah, I mean,
Underground Railway, Susan B. Anthony, Frederick Douglass. Your road trip to Mount Hope Cemetery.
we just drank a lot in Buffalo and then caused ruckus.
Well, there you go.
So the under the knowledge, maybe if we start with that, are there things under the knowledge that people think shouldn't be there, should be there, that aren't? What do we need to do with?
I think that, oh wait, you've got it there, never mind. I wanted to make sure that the Black social work movement, like there are contributors to social work that are by individuals, particularly women of color, people of color, that are often never discussed, that I think we should incorporate.
Anything with feminist theory or
Who cares about those feminists? So, would we do all think that feminist theory should be a part of this course? I feel like that makes sense.
yeah.
Feminism.
Yeah.
Well, there's different feminist theories, so.
There's only one, Kathy.
No, actually there isn't, but I'm learning about them. There are actually many of them. So it depends on what you want to highlight, but there is that category.
Okay.
I mean, I think the suffragette movement, I don't know. Like in terms of, you know, because when you start to look at human rights, like what are sort of the human rights elements? Because social justice is connected to human rights, right? Amy, did you say no? What did you say?
I said, uh-huh, yes, I was agreeing with you. I didn't realize I wasn't on mute, sorry.
I'm like,
Not like I said, no, that's
no.
ridiculous.
forget about those human rights.
I don't need human rights. No, I was just thinking about like, you know, like the bail reform movement in like New York State and like our actual like justice system should possibly be included in our social justice course.
I like it.
I've noticed in the intro classes when we talk about diversity in different populations, it seems like there has repeatedly been kind of issues with the subject of disabilities and student
Oh,
biases
Oh.
around it, which is
Yep.
interesting. Because I think there's probably a pretty high population of students represented with that. But yeah, so
That's a really good point.
yeah.
Yep.
Oh my gosh. And if you guys have not seen, I'm sorry, Berg, did I just stomp all over you? Yeah, I did. I'm
Yes.
sorry.
You did.
I did. I apologize.
closing. The Disabilities Museum is no more, as I
It's
understand.
closing.
Really?
It closed like in 2019. It was before the pandemic.
Right. But I thought they were going to open back up.
No.
Oh, too bad.
Can we get
Wait,
there?
what closed?
There's a
The
there was-
Museum of Disability. It was on Main Street, part of People Inc., one of the best museums. Jeez.
Except for one tiny fact that it wasn't actually accessible, but you know, other than that.
I'm telling you.
I wonder if this is something that I'm just gonna make a little note here for, you know, us in our free time. I wonder if we can get the whatever their like exhibits were and either like somehow make them like electronic or have the library you know, rotate some of those exhibits through, and like in the first floor of the library they have those things.
That's what they used to do, Jessica. They had an online situation where you would visit the exhibits and hear about all the things in the exhibit. That's
So I'm
disappointing.
gonna put that, that's a great idea. I'm gonna put that in the parking lot.
Okay,
Don't sigh at me. I'm gonna put that in the parking lot.
Be sighing at you.
Berg, like I'm sorry to like be a total like jerk right now, but what's the correct like terminology for like disability rights? If I put disability rights, is that
I think so. I mean, when
Yeah.
I remember like being Jackie's colleague since she did disability, she said that's what she would use. And the textbook has something really weird. There's a problem there.
there's like the ADA? That's what I'm trying.
Americans Disability Act.
God,
I was
okay.
looking.
So one of the things that you definitely want to like think about, if none of you guys, this is a sidebar conversation, I apologize. If you have not seen the documentary Crip Camp, you've got to see it. It's actually connected to a summer camp up in upstate New York. And it was designed specifically for disabled kids.
Yep.
And out of these group of campers grew the disability rights movement.
Yep.
And it is a phenomenal, it's a phenomenal documentary if you have not seen it.
And Cradle Beach is based on that.
Well, Kathy, I was gonna watch it tomorrow, but my boss is making me come to some retreat all day.
Man, what's up with that?
You know?
Apparently it's on Netflix.
Yes, it's on Netflix.
It
I'm
is.
watching it right
By
now.
pretending to be in this meeting, you can be
What's your
watching.
point?
So
But I think that we need to
add to
like,
knowledge.
what's that?
Anything else we need to add to the knowledge here?
No, I think good.
I mean, this is a lot of knowledge. Like, this could really be 2 classes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just saying that. I don't know why I felt the need to put that out into the universe, but
I agree, and I think that um there may be some benefit to having like an intro to social justice class that kind of touches on different categories, and then having an elective like a LGBT elective or something that really like dives deeper into that. Or we just sort of decide that, you know what, who cares about human trafficking? Take that off the list.
who cares? Who cares? Just throw that out. Throw it out.
Well, some of these things are contemporary issues, social contemporaries. I'm going to call them social issues. Like, you know, like you could do a whole thing on violence against women and girls.
Right.
And like when you think about the social movements in this country, like I know we're focusing primarily on the United States, and it's not like these initiatives don't exist internationally, but you might think about this course from you've already talked about social movements. So what are some of the key social movements, and also how they build on each other?
Yeah.
You know, so you've got, you know, the civil rights movement, which didn't just start in the 60s. It predates that. It goes back into the 40s and 50s.
Right.
You know, like when you there's all sorts of, you know, if we can even just not do the surface touch, but like kind of organize it around either the key social movements that we think are important as they are related to social work. I don't even know if you can answer that question because they all are. You know, there's the environment, social issues, there's issues related to gender. Like if, I don't know if that helps or not, Jess, because you're right. I mean, we could do an entire minor on this. This is a minor sitting
I
here.
think I agree, and I think it was Amy's point though, not mine.
Okay, Amy,
I
your
mean,
point is well taken.
I'll take credit for, you know, any work that people want to do for me.
No worries.
Well, I'm going to go
I have
back
a
to
chair
the
now, so-
statement that Jessica shared, the idea, and this brings me back to elective courses outside of our department. We could lay the framework for diversity and social justice in these different courses. And if students want more specific information, they could take a course in sociology as an elective. They could take a course in psychology. Psychology holds the gerontology minor. You could take courses there. You could take courses in sociology. Women's studies has specific courses. I mean, we can introduce them to the concept, but to get more specific information, they could take those courses as electives in other departments, because all these departments offer these very specialized courses, and we don't offer those at this time.
So that takes us back to the question, Karen, about
Yeah.
the inclusion of courses that are not taught in a social work under the auspices of social work being used for credit for a social work degree. And that may or may not be, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question, but
I think it would be pretty interesting. I mean, because I've taken courses in sociology, I've taken courses in women and gender studies, and I've been, that was eons ago. And we always tell our students to look at minors, but I think it's an amazing idea. We had students under CAS take psychology courses. I mean,
oh, I'm not saying that we've all taken electives, but the
right.
issue is if our electives for our program, I'm not saying this is not worthy of exploration. We've got it in our parking lot
it's definitely exciting,
right? So coming back to what is it that we think we need to make sure that we are offering, then we can build on, like find out that, if you want to take this elective in another department, then it needs to be this particular elective. Do you know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Like,
yeah.
Okay, go pick an elective anywhere. It's this. And again, we need to talk to the department to see if that's something that they can handle and when do they offer it. So logistically, there's those issues. And then just permission wise, how can we build it? Can we do that? And if we can, that's great. But then we need to have conversations with whoever, sociology, whatever.
I have an idea.
Okay.
Because we have this really long list here of different vulnerable groups, right?
Sure.
But we haven't talked about equity and diversity yet. What we could do, to Amy's point that this really could be 2 classes, is we could decide that in the equity and diversity class, we're going to talk about race, social class, and gender, because those are always the big 3. Just, so anything then in here that has to do with race, social class, or gender, we move to diversity. And then down here, we keep like the criminal justice system, we keep the ADA, we keep we keep environmental justice, we keep LGBTQ. Like, then that gives us a way to go a little bit deeper with each of these, so it's not so like surface level.
Sure.
Yep, that makes sense.
That makes a lot of sense.
And I don't know that it necessarily has to be like race, race, class, and gender up here. I was just throwing a couple things out.
Sure.
So
Because when I was looking at the equity and diversity component, my brain immediately became tantalized with what you did right up there. I love cultural humility, diversity and difference. I love oppression, inclusion, and privilege. I love privilege, implicit biases, over biases. I love everything about CSWE's information about diversity, NASW about diversity. I'm thinking we should put culture, social class, and social identity. Culture, social class, and social identity. I think race and racism. I think sex and sexism. I think we should have ableism in there, heterosexism in there. We should have some conversations around religious oppression. We should have some conversations in there about, who am I thinking of?
Well, we should have
globalism, international.
Well, we should have stuff about xenophobia and refugee, anti-refugee.
Yeah.
So.
Yep.
So if your equity and diversity begins to do, because we decided that equity and diversity and intro could be taken by sophomores, right? So if we lay a good foundation, then when you start walking into the social justice realm, because social justice is also not just, I know we haven't sorted it out, but I would imagine one of the skills is about like coalition building, which we've got down there. Like community organizing, like bringing people together to take action against some kind of, like whatever the injustice is, whether it's a march, a walk, a protest,
I'm thinking maybe characteristics of an ally.
I think I add cissexism to this list, and two concepts that I find really helpful are the intersectionality. Like, I don't know if that's too advanced for an intro class, if that would go into an elective, and also the concept of microaggressions, and for students to be cognizant of what that means in the classroom. Like I do this presentation, I've done an intro, and students who, you can tell they're processing, like they've never been explicitly told this. It's like they really need to know.
Yeah.
Yep. Action planning. My big ones: characteristics of an ally, safety planning, action planning, empowered people.
Yeah, how to be an ally.
Would that be a
Yep.
skill? How to be an ally, an ally?
Yep, how to be an ally is a skill. How to be an empowered person is a skill. Um,
What is that?
Safety planning is a skill. Action planning is a skill.
At like at meso and macro levels too. What is this?
Right. Micro, meso, and macro. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
I think there needs to be something about bystanders.
Mm,
You know, the idea of bystanders,
Mm.
because not saying, you know, like not like whether you're talking at a micro, meso, or macro level, you know, there are bystanders, and bystanders complicity, and silence means that you agree, right?
So
How do
okay.
you know, we can, obviously we can take time to, you know, fill this out in terms of what specifically, but I just think that, you know,
Continuum of oppression.
it's part of there needs to be something discussed about bystanders.
It's called the
it's-
continuum of oppression.
Yeah.
There's a specific document for it's called continuum of oppression, and it could be behavior, but it also can be a skill that you recognize what that is and where you are on this continuum now, and where do you want to be at the end of the class. When I used to teach the class, I used to introduce the continuum and say, where do you see yourself as it relates to racism, as sexism, and religious oppression in this? And then at the end of the class, where do you see yourself now on all of these levels? Love the continuum. And I think one of the other things that comes in to diversity is, and they're both by Bobby Harrell, the cycle of socialization and the cycle of liberation. And cycle of liberation. Cycle of socialization teaches you how you were taught about yourself and other people. And the cycle of liberation is that awakening that says, this is where I am, and now this is where I want to go from this point forward. Bobby Harrow, Harro. She was a sociologist. Damn good. Damn good.
mm.
Oh my God, one of my favorite areas. Jeez.
I think that I caught everything that you guys were saying. I'm sorry.
I'm pretty sure you did, Jess. You were like speed nose keys. I'm looking.
I was trying. So I guess we need to figure out how we want to split these up. But what I'm hearing is that Berg and Karen really want to create this course. That's what I'm hearing.
I'm open.
I'm open to it too. I mean, really, I'm open to it. Yep.
We
And-
just want to make sure that, like, so as we're thinking about this equity and diversity, so the elements that, you know, one of the things that we wanted to highlight are anything that anything that's in social justice that we really think needs to be in equity and diversity. Because remember, equity and diversity is going to come first for many students, right? Then we should move it up in here.
Yep.
So that it's, because we want to make sure they understand there's equity and diversity is a foundation, and then social justice is taking this equity, the issues around equity and diversity, and doing something about it.
Yeah.
Right. So we want to make sure that we're making a distinction there.
I know you're going to get mad at me, Kathy, because you said not to talk about assignments, but I think in equity and diversity, it would be those assignments of like, you know, if they're in an agency, like look to see if they have anything about like different languages posted, or
Yep.
on campus,
Yep.
look
Yep.
to see if people who are in a wheelchair can get around, or
Yep.
someone who
Yep.
may be blind,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
In the social justice class, I see those assignments being like taking that next step of okay, so now we've kind of assessed, right? So maybe this is like assessment of those things. And then down here is like the intervention of like, now we write letters.
The case management of those things.
Well, wait a minute, you guys, no, back off. You haven't taught them about case management yet. But it's not just case management, right? Social justice is about political action. Social
Well,
justice.
we could just put the word action, social
It's
action.
social action. That's what, so social justice, human rights, whatever, blah, blah, blah. That's going to be your action oriented course. Like, if there's an injustice, what do you do? First of all, you got to see the injustice, right? You have to see it, know it. So that's why we spent time with you in equity and diversity, getting you to examine all of these things. And also, hopefully, you've been doing some self-examination
Absolutely.
about that.
Absolutely.
So you can go to the website for implicit bias and take the survey and see, do you have an implicit bias based on faces, right? There are lots of ways to incorporate ways to become knowledgeable, but also maybe more self-aware.
One of the things that was in the chat box from Jim is if we wanted his help with that diversity course, he would help me and Berg. So great minds think alike. That's very cool. I'm very excited about it.
Yeah. So remember, just as a process comment, so when you guys are working in the course, like we're going to probably break out into, taking very specific elements of the curriculum and working on it. We're going to bring it all back to the curriculum committee, because at that point it'll be the curriculum committee.
Yep.
And then say, okay, here's what we're doing. Anybody got any issues or concerns with that? So, because when you're, so that so letting everybody know that will be the process. So if Jim and Berg and Karen and Jessica or whoever is going to be working on equity and diversity, then when they get it done or they think they're at it done, they're going to bring it to curriculum and we're going to look at it. Anybody who hasn't. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah, I was gonna sort of make Jim help me with this social justice class.
Oh, okay.
Oh, okay.
Well, then that's fine. I mean,
but I do think that, like, so Jim doesn't get a say, but I do think that whoever's working on the diversity and social justice, like, we're probably gonna have to work together.
Absolutely.
So that
absolutely
no overlap, because obviously there's a ton of overlap. So maybe we can figure out how we want to do that.
It doesn't have to be perfect by the end of the day. It just has to be enough. It's like corralling cats. There just has to be enough cats in the corral for us to have an idea of where we're going with it. And then we're going to work really hard. Like then the fun begins in terms of really being able to build out the course itself. Because we could spend the next 10 days, 2 months, just on these 2 courses alone.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, Amy.
Just saying.
Oh, before we move on from this one, I wanted to note there was a lecture Loretta Ross did online for UV that's recorded called Calling In, Not Calling Out. And it's like trying to address that, like the kind of the polarization. Well, that's how I interpret it. Like, but that there's also a culture on social media of calling out that's really just people being nasty, but like disconnected. And I think that could be a helpful concept that, she talks about, you're not always responsible for calling people in but that there's also a continuum of what it looks like to hold people accountable.
No, that's a really great point, Berg. I don't know if you guys have seen them, but there's a whole series of experiments that they recorded. I'll find it and send it out to you guys. And they pulled people of very divergent perspectives together and had them discuss things. And it was amazing. By the end of their discussion, it was all about calling in, like, if we're going to use it this way, of getting people to think more about what they had in common and able to talk about why they think the way they do.
The color of fear
didn't necessarily change their views, they
No.
agreed that they could agree to disagree, which was a far cry where they started, which is, I have nothing in common with you, get away from me. So this idea of agreeing to disagree, but being able to collaborate, or at least to have the conversations. Because I think we, in a civil society, I think in many ways we've lost that ability because we're so polarized on everything.
I hear that. I feel like the idea of agreeing to disagree is important. I feel like this concept, though, it still is kind of taking this position that there is a social justice view.
Yep.
And
Yeah.
in a sense, like that it is, you can be critical, but at the same time, how do you be critical and still like perpetuate inclusion rather than hostility?
Right.
Like,
Right. Because there is right and wrong.
yeah.
Right. Okay, so are we good with, and we're gonna look into, intro becoming an IF, social justice, now, and diversity and equity, is that going to be the diversity course that we want to put forward as an IF? Yes, okay, I see that.
I think so. And then Jim, I don't know if there's been more talk about having specific social justice courses, but if so, I was thinking that would be this. But I think there's also a real opportunity for us to petition for this course because there's so much history content in it to be an IF for American history, which our students would be able to double dip. They'd be able to take this and it would count as their American history IF.
Yeah,
It would also allow non-majors to take the course for their American history IF or our minors, or and it would count as their American history IF as well. So
we'll add that. Like, how do you become an IF for American history?
Guys, in the chat box, I uploaded my last syllabus at Niagara University, my diversity and social justice class. And, it's for Berg, Jess, James, just to pull down and take a look at it to see how I laid the course out. I don't want to use anything from UB because that was more of a clinical trauma based. And I don't think that's appropriate for our students. This was for undergrads.
Thank you, Karen.
Welcome. And it was certainly a lot of fun because this course required service learning. So not only did they have to take the class, but they had to work with a diverse population, and their learn and serve had to be approved.
Speaking, oh yeah, as I see that you have it down there too, Jessica, like this course, is it going to be a service learning based course?
Yeah. Is that for the other one too?
I can put it, I mean, if it were up to me, every single one of our courses would have some component where there's something like some type of applied work with the community, whether it's a class project or actual like service learning or volunteering. But
well,
I think it depends on
we didn't
what.
talk about that for intro.
Well, I don't know if intro should be the course to do that. I don't know. If we have service learning connected to the diversity course and the social justice course, then whatever the service learning agency is, it should be the same agency if at all possible. Because if they're identifying in the one course things that require social action, then in the second course, they could follow it through with social action. Just a thought.
Yeah, that may work under certain, but keep in mind, we're going to, like, if we get back up to 90 students, right? I mean, it just depends on how it goes. I
Yeah.
personally, I don't know. Unless you want to do volunteer hours in intro, I don't know. I feel like we should let that one go.
I think we should. I really, I should. I mean, intro should be the course that just pretty much introduces them to the world of social work. without throwing them in the frying pan at the same time.
Yeah,
But-
I think we can
Talk more about it.
talk through. I think we're gonna have to do a lot of conversing about how to kind of divvy this, like separate this out. But in those conversations, maybe we can talk about the service learning, because there might also be some students that are pre-majors that take the diversity class first and the social justice class 2 semesters later.
Yeah, that's right. The part-time and the part-time people, yep.
Or non-majors. So, but I think
Well,
I
let's put that on, you've highlighted that. That's a question that we need to come back to for those courses. Let's see how the total, as we go through the whole thing, it may be that makes perfect sense. And we also might have some ideas about that or not, but we can come back and answer that question later. But the most important thing is it's on the agenda to be inquired. There's an inquiry there.
Mm-hmm.
So.
okay.
Um,
Great. So moving to foundations, and I'll just explain what I did here as I was putting everything from our original chart, moving it over to here with the knowledge and skills. There were places where a lot of things overlap. So for example, the cultural humility and oppression. These were things that people said we should have in the foundations course, but they were also things that we said we should have in the diversity class, for example.
Sure.
So I took them out of here. That doesn't mean that they can't be mentioned. I mean, I would think that we would mention oppression in every one of our classes in some way, but the focus wouldn't be on these. These would be focused on in another course. So that's why you'll see some things crossed out, because they got moved to
Other
where it's
courses.
maybe more appropriate. So so this is looking at professional development. Well, this first like section here is the engagement skills, and then this section down here is the professional development. So that's what was copied and pasted right from those charts. So I don't know if it makes sense to kind of look at the engagement first, and then I can scroll down and we can look at the other.
I don't think it matters which direction you go. I mean, I think the professional development is going to feed into either way. Like the way that I would think about this course is that the professional development comes first and then the assessment stuff comes second. Because if they don't understand who they are and why they do what they do, and all the things that this is going to build on that idea from intro social work, that there's a process related to the social work.
I agree. I didn't mean to I just meant for our conversation.
No, I'm just, I know, it doesn't matter. I just, maybe,
Well,
I don't know. Maybe,
look at professional development first.
yeah.
I think all this stuff makes sense. I found a great video about the new changes, the 2021 for the Code of Ethics, that I'll share with you, Kathy, about it's about social media, and
Yes.
it's a really good, it's like a 20-minute, but it's really good.
Okay. And also the Code of Ethics, they're going to be adopting, they haven't adopted it. They just adopted it, I think, because it hasn't been changed on the website yet. But there is a brand new, like the last one was 2017. This one will be 2021. Yeah.
I saw that.
Yeah. So if you would share that one, because we probably should know what are the new expectations, particularly about social media. And about, I'm guessing it has to do with like, what are you posting on your own personal self, and how are you keeping boundaries that are appropriate? And
Well, I was surprised because there were 2 people, like one person was basically interviewing another person, and they had a very hard line about whether or not, as a social worker, whether or not you should ever become Facebook friends with clients, and whether or not you should ever look clients up on social media. And
Yeah.
when I heard their answer, to me, the one of the first things I thought of was, as a professional program, we should be modeling those same things.
Yes.
With, so like, as a profession, they're saying, like, I know of agencies where the social worker creates a professional account and then friends their clients, and it's for different, like, communication reasons, right? um and it's a separate professional account, and NASW or NASW is saying, like, absolutely not, you should never do that. You should never look a client up on social media, you should never Google a client, like, nothing. And so then I thought, well, if that's like, if that's a hard line, then we should maybe create a policy within our department that says that, faculty shouldn't friend students, faculty shouldn't, because I know even in like social work 419, um I had to create a separate Facebook account, all the students had to friend me, and then we did the Facebook petition. And so it raised a lot of red flags for me about what are we modeling and teaching them by what we're modeling. Like, I almost feel like we're setting them up to then go into the field and create some crazy ethical dilemmas because we're not modeling that same behavior necessarily. So it just, total side note, but it was a really interesting. I was surprised at how, like, that there was such a hard line. I was expecting them to be like, well, under some circumstances. They were like, absolutely not, never. I was like, oh,
Wow.
okay. So
That's
I think some of this is coming out in 2021, with those changes. Was my take on it, but
Here's my question about this class specifically. Is this a fall class for juniors or is this a spring class for juniors?
No, this one was in our fall grouping, Karen.
If that's the case, some of the things that you're talking about in here, Career Development Center can take care of some of the topics and knock some field stuff out at the same time.
Okay. Okay.
I'm looking at, what to wear to interview. I'm looking at the cover letter. I'm looking at the resume. I'm looking at organizing and writing clearly written documents. I mean, what is supervision? I mean, these are topics that I have the Career Development Center do with the students to prepare them for field orientation and even with their interviews with me.
Well, that would be great.
I kind of like the idea that we would be orienting them to field their first semester in our program.
Yep.
They
You know-
would be orientating their first semester in the program anyway. Because most of them would be, is this sophomore class or this is a junior class?
This is junior class.
Yeah, they would be orientated the first semester anyway, except this is in a class.
Well, I think the reason why, I mean, we've talked about this off and on, and I think one of the impetuses and goals for the concept behind this course, as we talked about it, was our students come in and they're not well prepared. And unless we take the time to do it in a way that makes sense, connected to the discipline, and really have a focus, like, it's a class, it's in the materials. You may also be going to the CDC, but we're going to be talking about this. We're going to be, whatever, blah, 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 assignments, yada, yada, yada. So that it, hopefully we're front loading this preparation so that when it does come time to do interviews with you, Karen, or they have to do other additional things, that there's been a lot of work done. So it makes a whole lot more sense to them. And it front loads and tries to be more preventative about situation.
Right.
And it's hard to do if we're doing everything and its brother. And this is the one course that it's like, this really is where we're going to talk to you about what's required
Yep.
of you in a different way than what intro did about general social work. Now we're going to take it down to your level
Yeah.
and what you need to learn how to do for yourself.
Yeah.
And then we're going to start teaching you the interpersonal helping skills. So that they talked about in 220 being that there's a helping process, or whether you're working with communities or whatever, that there's a process. It's not just talking to your friend. So, and then we will tap into, everything that's going on in social justice and diversity.
The the only thing, and I highlighted it, I don't know that this fits in here, and I'm not sure
Yes.
what it means. But I think in intro, like, we would talk about the difference between working for a government agency like CPS versus working for a nonprofit versus working for a for-profit. So I don't know if this then takes like an additional step, like maybe working with organizations, like talking about like the board of directors and how you would interact with them as a professional, or what a board of directors is. Like, I don't know if I would go into that in intro.
Mm-mm.
But this is
Would
the,
that be in applied practice? What you're looking for with this, would it be an applied practice behavior?
I don't,
It might be. I think that understanding,
Oh,
I
I
mean,
see.
like,
I see. Okay.
I don't know.
I,
What,
I don't know that I agree with you. I don't know that I understand what all that means. And I maybe found it, I don't know.
yeah, I think so.
I
Like
think
in
it's
320, we
an
talk about,
anomaly. What's that?
in 320, we talk about like what a bureaucracy is. And so then working for a government agency can be bureaucratic. And then we talk about what a nonprofit is and how a nonprofit has a board of directors, and that as a
Yeah.
direct care staff, you're probably like, it's probably not appropriate for you to interact with the board unless interacted with. And then we talk about for profit and how there's been a push in the field of social work to, start to like privatize a lot of the work that we do. And there's, maybe some pros to that, but there's, cons to that as well, especially considering the roots of our profession. So I wasn't planning on like saying all of that in intro. I can throw it in there if that's where it is a better fit. And that's, I guess, my understanding of what this is. I don't know if anyone else has
I
more
don't
to
think it
add.
belongs in foundation. Go back up to intro for a second, because I thought you had something up there that
Did
talked
you
about,
did you say you think it belongs in intro or it doesn't?
no, I'd say it needs to, well, before I say that, can you just go up to intro for a sec? Because you do talk about like different types, not-for-profit, public, structures of agencies.
Yeah, and I wasn't gonna. Oh, I guess the structure of the agency is in there. So I'm thinking about my summer class and not this list. So do you think I should move that up to here then?
I think I think what you have up in intro right now is
Uh-huh.
fine, and I would just delete that. Delete this guy.
Okay. Gone. Did anyone think it should stay?
Ah,
I mean, I mean,
I do have an undo button. Sorry, I got happy. Like, okay.
I mean, keep
so
in mind that down below in applied social work and social work in action, because we need to do micro, meso, macro. Like, you can talk about working organizations and, you know what I mean? Like,
okay. Well, let's finish this one so that we can move on to those. So for the professional development, is there anything else in here that people think doesn't belong, or anything else we should add for this foundations course?
Oh, lifelong learning.
Are you saying that we should add that?
Yeah,
Is that a
like they have an obligation to keep themselves. Maybe that's gonna be, no, what, never mind. It's in the NSW Code of Ethics. Never mind. It's redundant.
well, a lot of this I think is in the code of ethics.
Well,
I'm gonna put it in here, lifelong learning. Are we good with this part of it?
We want to maybe, okay, never mind. You already have it in there. I just don't have my glasses on. Where's my glasses?
I can see if I can make it bigger, sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
I just want it all to fit on one.
I was about to say, what about technology? And I'm like, there it is.
mhm.
Okay.
So are we good?
Yep,
Yeah.
we're good.
So then the second thing that we were kind of putting into this foundations class is all the engagement skills. So that's these things here.
Question, is it appropriate for a bachelor's level student to do a lethality assessment?
Is that in there?
Yes, it is.
Oh, I missed,
I think that our bachelor level students,
yeah.
when they graduate, will be expected to do them.
Okay.
If a client calls them on the phone and says, I'm gonna kill myself, I think they need to know how to.
So I think there's screening and then there's assessment.
Can we put screening
You
as
know,
opposed to assessment, risk lethality screening,
yeah,
then assessment?
Here?
Yeah,
Okay,
screening.
Because assessment is a clinical skill.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a clinical, yeah, that
And
scares me.
if they screen and someone says, I think I'm gonna kill myself, then the first thing they're gonna do is say, stay tight and I'm gonna get the clinician.
Yeah, that's what they should do.
That's what they'll, I mean, or
And
they'll
then-
have some procedure in their agency where that's what they'll
Yeah, that's what they should do. They
go
should.
to
Even
the
the training-
supervisor or something like that.
And even the training with mental health first aid is
Yeah,
talking to them and taking them to help.
Yeah.
yeah.
So
And even the training they do on campus, I forgot what it's called, but when Wendell did it for the seniors, it's about talking and getting them the resources.
I think it's the mental health first
it's
aid.
mental health first aid.
Well, no, there's a second training that happens on campus that we're all connected to about suicide prevention. And the idea is to listen and refer to services, QPI or something. I forgot what it's called. But it's not just mental health first aid, it's something else.
It's the question persuade refer
Yeah.
they just
Yeah.
sent out. But
Yeah.
that's literally mental health first aid.
I'll put it in here as a. Yeah. Okay. So anything else under engagement here? Do we have,
Now, at what point, do folks think they should be required to do a group project? Is that like? Maybe I'm
Not in this class.
That can happen in diversity.
Well, a group project, you mean like a simulated group project? What do you mean, Berg?
I mean, I guess part of my professional development has been like learning to collaborate with folks, and I wonder, but that doesn't have to happen here, even though if it's a concept that's related to professional development.
I mean, that might be an assignment. We can talk about that. But coalition building, collaboration, supervision, those are all things that, just because you don't like somebody, you still have to work with them, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Kathy, is the coalition building, I mean, that's under social justice. So do we take that?
I would take, yeah, you're right. That's more under, I would just say collaboration or building collaborative relationships, because coalition building is more of a social justice, social action thing.
Okay. So we're good with that?
Yep.
That works.
So we have 3 more of our core courses to go. I need to use the restroom.
There's no bathroom breaks in
I can
retreat.
leave this up here and go do that, and you all can look at this and see if there's anything else that needs to be added.
Can you just scroll it down a little bit? So is that at the top? Like, it's at the starting point? No. Up, go up. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
There you
it's a
stop.
start point. Yeah.
There you
Yeah. So what was I gonna? Oh, so this is our like 307, right? Like the theoretical, the theories,
And 308, pretty much.
and 308, and then the assessment stuff. And I'll be right back. I'm actually never coming back.
Oh, Tucker.
Motivational interview. I don't see cognitive behavioral therapy in there.
I'm gonna do my theory is CBT. I don't know how many.
So
Like,
many.
I don't know how many. That's part of what happened in 422. I swear to God, they were like CBT. I'm
Oh,
like,
you
where
know
are you
what?
getting this?
Kathy, they're
What?
getting it from ECC. Rashowski's, they're Rashowski's. Rashowski taught us REBT for addiction. That's where they're coming from.
Okay, well, okay. And if you
I
go
know
on,
where they're coming
and
from.
okay, that's
They have-
great. But
They have 6 credits of theory, like in their first semester of junior year. How do they not know that these things are theories and not CBT?
Yeah.
I don't know. Therapy, theory, therapy, theory. I mean, I'm like, I keep telling, like, theory. How do you spell that? What does that mean? Therapy. They both start with a T.
Kath, he still teaches them how to do the DSM workups. Him and I have talked about that.
And yeah, I totally agree with you, Karen, and it's wrong and it's inappropriate.
I've had conversations with him about that.
It's inappropriate. K-Sex, no.
No,
No.
not at all.
And if you go to work someplace where you walk in and you start doing that stuff, you'll jeopardize licensing.
Yeah,
Just to say, just
him
in
and I-
case you're interested.
Him and I have talked about that. I've had conversations with him about
You know,
that because
and
it's a very risky thing for a K-Sec
very
to do.
risky. Well, and if you work in a program where they actually supervise you, they'll like come down on you like
Bricks.
bricks.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not sure what your point is. Like, and even if you get to be a KSAC, you're only allowed to do assessment regarding addiction,
Right.
period. That's it.
Period.
That's
Yeah.
it. You're not
Right.
doing DSM through, I'm sorry, 5. You're not going outside of that, outside of substance abuse and addiction. That's it.
Right.
That's the only
Your
chapter you get
practice
to
is
look
there.
at.
Yeah.
Are they have an addiction? Do they have an abuse? Do they have, like,
Right.
that's it. That's all. You're not allowed to do anything else.
Yeah, I'm sort of tired of talking to him.
That's
I love him. I love him to death. I really do. He is the man. He has brought me into this world, for lack of a better term. But I'm just tired of talking to him. I'm tired of talking to him.
Well, that's just really sad because that's just
And
really
I don't
sad.
say that to be. I don't say that to be mean. I'm just.
No.
tired. I'm tired of talking to him.
No,
It's his program. It's his situation. I don't have any right to question or offer suggestions, even as an alumni of the program. And I'm going to stay out of it and see what happens.
The downside is that we get, the students, it's so funny because the students that come in from that direction,
Yeah.
we have to,
Yep.
you have to take them back and say, okay,
Yeah.
you've got some bad habits, You learn some things that you need to work to unlearn, and they will be really tough to unlearn because
it's been drilled. It's been drilled into them.
drilled
That's
in, and first learned is best learned. So
Yep.
they think they know, like, and then they go in and they start doing interviews and you can see it, like, no open-ended questions.
Right.
No, like, they're going in with a preconceived notion of what it is that they're looking at, and that's how they design their assessment to
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
they think, versus you don't know. Your
Right.
job is to get the client to talk to you and tell you the story.
Right.
So then an assessment can be accomplished, not going in with, I presume you are.
But but one of the things I talked to him about, even me interning in the agencies I interned in, there's still documents that have to be filled out. We don't create our own assessment. We don't create our own intake paperwork. We don't do that. We still have to follow some kind of direction. I'm sorry, we still have to follow some kind of direction. We can't do that on our own.
See, you want, like, that's what part of professional development is, knowing your scope of practice and
Ugh.
following directions.
So what I'm hearing you all say is that you're good with everything that's on this
It
list?
looks good.
It does.
It looks good. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Anything that is
So
missing?
can I, wait, quick question. You guys, can I ask you a question about this?
No.
What is the purpose of Lowenberg, Dolgoff, and Harrington?
I don't know. Who
Okay.
they are.
I
I've
have
never heard
I
of it
have
before,
I
so-
have the history. Are you ready for the history?
I'm
Are you ready?
scared. You're scared. I'm scared, Karen.
I feel like I should leave the room for this.
You guys know I have the history, so why don't I just answer it?
Okay.
That being said, when it came to choosing models of ethical dilemmas, we had multiple models on the table with the the butterflies. So I'm going to call them the emeritus butterflies. The emeritus butterflies felt that the best model at that time for ethical, integrity, ethical challenges, ethical anything was Lowenberg. And if we wanted to change it to a more appropriate model for our students to learn from and follow something applicable, we can do that. See, that was a short and sweet version of that.
I'm thinking they should follow this, code of ethics.
Does the
But
code of ethics have a exact model to follow? Like,
well, wait, why do we need a model if we're using the code of ethics for the NASW?
Yeah, I
Like,
mean,
who said we had to have a model?
I know it.
history,
It,
No, no, okay. I'm just
History.
asking.
Yeah.
Just
Well,
asking.
and at UB, the way that they teach it is that you always start out with the NASW, but if you can't, if you still aren't sure, you go with Lowenberg.
Right, I mean, we teach it that way too, Mark. I'm just, Lowenberg, Dolgoff, and Harrington is not, it's clunky.
see,
I-
my
It's-
favorite one is Reamer, the ethic model. I love Reamer. I've always loved Reamer. I've always loved Reamer. If you want to process out whether or not something is an ethical dilemma to yourself, if NASW doesn't help you because of how concrete our students are, the ethic model from Reamer is quick, easy, simple.
I
Just
want to
answer
know
your
more
damn
about that
questions.
one because I've
So
not.
we talked about this. We talked about Reamer.
Yeah.
I can't remember,
Let me see if I can
like
find.
in 2015, we talked about Reamer.
Yes, I love him.
Do you remember this? Like,
Yes.
the problem, hold on a second, I just gotta.
Ethic.
So the problem with Reamer, Reamer's not bad, but the problem with Reamer is that it's a little bit like, it's like Lowenberg Dolgoff light. A little bit. Like the decision-making framework, identify ethical issues and the social work values and duties that conflict. So, well, what social work values are you using? Are you using the NASW values? So what, like, realistically, I guess the question I had from you guys, I'm just asking, realistically, can you think of a circumstance or can you think of a situation where the NASW Code of Ethics, the NASW standards and indicators of cultural competency, case management and technology, that any one of those standards wouldn't be able to address your issue.
I think for us, I agree, Kathy, with you.
And I think the more options we give them, like I would hate for them to like jump to Dolgoff
Yeah,
and
Mhm.
not know about the code of ethics. Like I think that we should be like drilling the code of ethics into them and not distracting them with these other things. But I also don't teach Dolgoff, so maybe, sorry, Lowenberg Harrington.
Dolgoff. Well, it used to be that people would refer to it as Dolgoff and Lowenberg and Dolgoff, and they'd leave Harrington off. Oh, the woman, by the way. And just
Right,
so
well, I refer to Miss Harrington then. I think that she's a lovely person, I'm sure.
I'm sure she is.
But I think it's a distraction from like we just need them to get the code down and understand the difference between a value and a standard.
yeah.
Well,
Right,
and
like-
also, what is an ethic? Like, what is ethics? What is an
Mhm.
ethical dilemma? Like, I had a few papers last week that I was grading that students were telling me that, oh, well, this is an ethical dilemma because I collected my own data. And I'm like, no. But like getting them to the point where they understand what even is ethics. And I think the more that we throw at them like models and theoretical frameworks,
It's
the less they're
confusing.
going to get it.
Yeah,
So
I mean, the only reason why I'm asking is because I think that's one of the reasons the ethics and value, or the ethics assignments always throw in Lowenberg, Dolgoff, and Harrington. And when they're using the NASW Code of Ethics, or you've asked them to go to another discipline, right, and see how
Right.
they're similar, they do much better. But the minute you start throwing Dolgoff, Harrington, and Lowen, they like lose their shit, and it
Okay.
confuses them. And so I'm just asking this question, not because I want to create anxiety for anybody, but I'm like,
No,
can we lose the Dolgoff, Lowenberg, and Harrington, or is there like a fundamental
No.
reason why we have to include it?
no. You got to remember, it was put in there by history.
So I just want to ask so it's up here under foundations where we talk about, I just lost it, but ethics of social work under foundations. And then we talk about ethical dilemmas.
Right there, up, down, right there.
Here,
Yeah.
about ethical dilemmas. So would that stay in foundations, or are you?
I'm suggesting that we have really heart-to-heart conversation, because the foundation social work, so the way I envision it, this is me, is that foundation course is that's the bedrock that everything's going to sit on. So ethics, personal, helping skills that can be translated in micro, meso, macro. It's professional development. Like if they get that, then that's going to make all the, hopefully, front loading everything for field and for any other course. So I would say
Okay.
the ethics conversation should stay in foundations. You might do
Okay.
ethical stuff in assessment, because there's always, but
Right, you're
hopefully-
going to talk about it.
yeah.
Okay. So then, is everyone good with everything else that's in the applied practice?
Mhm.
yeah.
Is it too
Okay.
radical to remove Lowenberg, Dolgoff, and Harrington?
I
No.
crossed out,
No.
application of ethical frameworks because we're doing ethical dilemmas in the foundations course.
Yeah.
There's no
Yeah.
longer frameworks, right?
'Cause-
There's any.
You know, Amy, your point's well taken. If they don't know how to identify when there's a problem between what, either is happening or what they're doing related to a client or their job, then that's a huge problem. And I think overall, by the time they get out of our program, they have an understanding of what ethics are about and the NASW Code of Ethics, because that's what they gravitate towards.
And guess what textbook they have to buy for advanced standing seminar?
It's the Lombard Dolgoff and Harrington
Yes,
text,
they do. Yes.
number 2012. And it's,
Yes. I know.
and how many of them like actually look at it? I mean, I
I
have a
know.
copy myself because, you know,
I'll do.
Well, but the other piece that I look at, and I look at this from a field standpoint, throughout the field year, we're nailing them with every code of ethics that NASW has come out with. Cultural competency, technology, code of
Sure.
ethics and case management, that sort of thing. So if we take out, I think if we take out the framework and really introduce and hone in on our students what the NASW code of ethics are, that would be really helpful, I think.
well, I mean,
Because-
we do that also, Karen, like we spend a considerable, but then you have to add Lombard, Dolgoff and Harrington. And oftentimes it feels like that
Yeah.
the tail's been added to the dog. you know?
Yeah.
They're
No,
like, well, wait a minute, because it clearly says, go to your code of ethics first.
right.
And then if you can't find anything that applies, then you can come back over here. So we
Right.
always have to say for the simulation, pretend
Mhm.
that you couldn't find anything in the code of ethics. Now apply Lombard, Dolgoff and Harrington. And they look at you like, well, why
Yeah.
would I do that when clearly you've just asked me in the section above to apply the NASW code of ethics? Like, are you on drugs? Like, have you lost your mind? So it's like, there's nothing wrong with saying, look, you know, if you find yourself in a situation where you can't find anything, here's a nice backup.
Mhm.
You can certainly present it, but if I remove that, it will make that whole discussion a lot less confusing, I
I
think.
think it will. I think it will. And then when they write their papers on it, it's just more or less confusing. It is.
So that means like in 423 right now and 424,
Get rid of it.
496, 497.
496.
Burn it
Yeah,
to the ground. Done.
He's gone. Thank you for the history lesson, Karen.
All right. Next is social work in action, and this includes planning, implementation, and termination. So there's a lot of pieces to it, but they're all obviously interrelated. So this is the planning section that I have pulled up right now.
So this is one of the courses we have to be attending to micro, meso, and macro.
This
Right.
is in
I
the
mean, we'll
spring
talk about-
semester.
Foundation's going to talk about it too, but you know,
This-
anything that we're doing in foundations can be applied across the board. But now we're going to start to drill down a little bit.
yeah,
Social work in action.
Karen,
Is
this is going to be juniors spring semester.
Okay.
So I noted over here a couple things. If we're going to do a case management certificate, maybe we include this as one of those case management courses.
Yep.
I also noted that there's the potential for this to be a writing course. Technically, per the college, what the requirement is that the students have to write something that is basically related to the profession, to what they might be doing when they graduate with the degree. And in order for it to count as a writing assessment, they have to write it, get feedback, and rewrite it. So my thought is this would make one of our writing assignments a little bit lighter if we decided to make this a writing course, because what we could do is have them write SMART goals and then get feedback and rewrite them.
Well, that's a good idea.
Or write a case note, right? The SOPIer note, and then get feedback and have to rewrite them. I think that our students are not, I think we all agree our students aren't great at writing. And I want to know that when they leave, they can write really clear, SMART goals, and they can write really clear case notes. I don't care if they can write a research paper.
Or they could write both, Jessica.
Yeah.
They could write both. They could write the SMART goals and they could write the SOAPier note.
Yeah.
Well, you guys, if you remember, it used to be that in 422, we wrote SOAP notes, and we write SOAP notes in 424. And then we wrote SOAPier notes, I don't know if we still do, in 423.
Well,
And I think we did some SOAPy and SOAP notes in Florida. And it's writing notes, they're getting the notes. Whether or not we do, we could use them more. You're absolutely right.
I think that so the other piece to that is on the macro level, writing policy briefs, policy fact sheets. So again, because I would rather the students leave knowing how to write clearly and concisely than to feel like they have to write 20 pages about a topic. And I know that they might then struggle when they get to their master's program and have to
Most
write.
of what I've been doing has been trying to get them to write less, not write more. Like to actually try
Right.
to say, if this is a 7-page paper, can you write it in 5? I think that would be, so I think, Jess, you're right on with, because what we're training them to do is not what they want when they get out,
We also have to have 2 writing courses. So
They
maybe
need
the
to,
next writing
and but
is
unless they're gonna write so much better. What's that, Jess?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
that we have to have 2 writing courses. So maybe that second writing course is a research paper, and maybe that's in the evidence-based, like
Yeah.
test, or maybe that's in as part of their capstone. But I think junior year, just getting them to be really clear about what they're thinking and being able to put that on paper, and then being able to like respond to feedback and edit and improve their writing, and having it be smaller, like write a SMART goal, rewrite that until you get it right versus write, but Berg has a,
Berg's got her hand up. What do you need to say, Berg?
I'll miss the hand because then I can like put it up and listen, which is nice. I totally agree with you on like writing less and like getting more concisely. And I think it's cool, this idea of like they do this first. And then I saw in 317, I thought the vast majority of students, like when they did their rewrite, which was a page and a half, like were really up to snuff. Like did good work. Like, it'll be a lot more work when they have to write that quality for 10 pages, but they'll know what that is. Like but yeah, so I think it's cool.
Just so you know, one of the themes, because there are many themes, one of the themes in the senior feedback was that one of the things that they learned was how to write better. They as much as we we have to suffer through that process with them because but and it's difficult and it's hard, but there's some real value in helping them, because professionally speaking, an inability to write is going to hurt them, and an inability to do a presentation is going to hurt them. And it's hard for us because we're the ones that are going to have to read and give them the feedback. But I stand, and I'm not saying that they have to write tons and tons and tons, but we know that writing is one of those things that the more you do it, the better you get. It's just a fact. And that's the reason why, we're not, and this is not about teaching them English. It's not about that. It's about, I don't understand what you said in this paragraph, and it's confusing and it's incomprehensible. So this needs to be rewritten, or whatever our assignments are going to be. There's a writing center to help you. There's, we're not asking us to teach them English. We're asking them to say, look, if you want to say something, here's a way to say it in active voice, and just write it. They've never been asked. It's never been asked of them, or it's rarely been asked of them. And when they're asked, like Berg is saying, like when they got asked to rewrite and they'd been pushed and pushed and pushed, they can do it. You see dramatic, I don't know about you guys, but you saw the
Mhm.
most improvement on those kinds of things in 317, because 317 is where the Band-Aid gets totally ripped off. Just
So
my
that was
opinion.
amazing. There was really a lot of growth. It was good to see. But yeah, so still in the spirit of writing, focusing more on quality than quantity.
Yeah.
Like, you don't need to write 15 pages and then not learn how to correctly write a citation or how to write like transitions. Like, you need focused attention on developing the quality.
But I think we can do both, Jessica. I think we can focus on the writing, like whether it's an intake note or a progress note or an assessment report, helping them organize using headings. You know, all of that really it dovetails nicely with APA. They just don't know it. You know, in some of the courses, or depending on, you know, right now we have 2 writing intensive courses. We could, you know, do both things. And I think that would be helpful. Clearly, it would be helpful to them.
I think too, you know, I think that once we are done with this, one of the things that we should do is go back and see how can we implement writing in all of our classes that it's gonna like just, you know, in maybe in those first 3 classes, they're writing reflections and it's more like journal entries and it's like low stress writing, just to get them used to writing all of the time and getting their thoughts on paper. And then, you know, in foundations, you're talking about APA and you're bringing some of this in. And then social work in action, we're saying, okay, here's the tools that we use as social workers to write. We use policy briefs, we use case notes, we use treatment plans. You need to be able to be solid on those things. And then they move into, I don't know what's next. So evidence-based, like, you
Yeah.
know, I think there's opportunities there for them to do a research paper, or maybe that becomes part of their capstone. You know, maybe they have to do a senior seminar or a senior
Yeah.
project where there's a research paper component.
That's what I was raising my hand about.
Sorry,
Why
Karen.
not have
Yep.
one of the senior capstone classes be the second writing course? Because if we're looking at the idea of a portfolio or a final project to say, okay, this is what you're doing to graduate, why not let that project be that writing intensive? Just a thought.
I don't know where I was taking notes somewhere about, maybe it's at the bottom. No. I thought I had notes about the capstone. I'm just
Yeah.
putting in
Yep, something that connects to,
I'm just putting it into the things, different things that we've talked about. I'm not saying that we need to do
Right.
right?
all of any of those, but
Well,
just,
and then there was like the integrated presentation. We talked about that too.
oh, what was the
like
other one?
the-
Sorry.
Panel president, whatever we're calling it.
Okay. If I don't write it down, it was never a thing. So sorry.
Well, you know what they say, if you didn't write it down, it doesn't happen. So,
So that's
um,
good for me.
so if we're back into, this is social work in action, right? That we're working on right now.
Yep. And just looking at the planning stuff first, even though we've kind of touched on some of the other stuff.
So where's assessment? We have engagement and professional development in foundation, right? So this one should be assessment, right? I can't remember where we put it.
I think assessments in the right.
Oh,
Is it right there?
applied practice. Okay.
And that's in the fall semester, isn't it?
Wait, Jessica, this applied practice, is that, did we do this one already?
We
That
just,
is-
yeah,
We were
Yeah,
it's like 307 and 308.
You did it.
Yeah.
You did this when I was in the bathroom, and I came back, and everyone said they were good with it and didn't have any questions. Except for
Except getting rid of Lauenberg.
yeah,
Well,
but I think AP is APA in this one, or that's in the foundations. So
so
Which-
in this one, you're okay, so this one is, so you're going to learn about the skills in foundation, and you're going to continue to demonstrate and practice skills here, and then the next, like the next ones.
mhm.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There was something in here that I thought just,
Under assessment or under, I don't know where you want me to go, Kath.
I know, I'm trying to find it.
There is here develop clear goals for a project, develop SMART goals.
Okay, that's good. But, oh, application bias. Okay, there it is. There it is. There it is. There it is. Can we take motivational interviewing out?
Fine with me.
Because motivational interviewing is a clinical skill.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? Motivational interviewing. It's not
But-
there.
I could have sworn it was there. Now you're gaslighting me now.
It's the one thing I'm good at.
Okay. All right.
Are we good?
Okay. I'm sorry. I got lost. I apologize. I got lost. Okay.
No, it's okay. I guess this is why I'm not allowed to go to the bathroom. Try to keep you on task here. So are we good with this stuff? I think for finances,
Yeah, I have a question mark about that. I mean, I noticed you highlighted it in blue. I have a question mark about whether or not that's a skill set that our students would need.
I don't think it's a skill set. It's under
It's under learning. I don't know if that's something they would need at this point, because at the bachelor's level, when they intern, they don't have the opportunity to put their hands on fundraising grants or any foundation stuff. They might be in the office to help, but in terms of the overall, they don't touch this.
so
At the master's level, they would.
in 320, the way that I talk about it is just that human service organizations are funded in different ways. Government agencies get funded through like
Okay.
legislation,
Okay.
nonprofits get funded through grants and foundations and fundraising. And that's why if you're told to write a case note, or you're told to I think it's more of like, to your
It
I agree
sounds
with
like
you,
it's
Karen.
more of an educational
Yeah, and
versus.
just Kathy, I think we've had conversations about this where it's more of them understanding like that grants might be a way the agency is funded, and then there might be things that data you have to collect for the grant that you
Mhm.
might be asked to collect. So when you're being told that you need to write a case note, like that might be because if you don't, you'll lose the grant. So
Right.
Documentation, for example, when certifiers come in for Medicare or Medicaid, if they don't see
Yeah.
a note, you're not going to get funded. You're not going to
Right.
get paid. Another example is, let's say you have to track the number of hotline calls you speak
Right.
to, and how long and whatever that you're tracking, or how many presentations you give in schools or whatever. You need,
Okay.
you have
That
information
makes
to
more
track.
sense, Jessica.
Yeah.
what you just
However,
stated.
I want to be, this is just, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to like try not to say it again, which is going to be impossible. But I don't understand writing a grant as an assignment. I don't understand that, because there's not a single executive director that's going to let a BSW student.
Right. Right.
Not
And
going to
that's
happen.
that's
With the
why.
exception of Mark.
unless they're marked, right?
Right.
He's the only
that's-
person. But
That's
agree
what I
with you,
was
Sharon.
just saying.
Not
Most
gonna
of our
happen.
agencies will not let a student
Nope.
this close
Absolutely.
to a grant, anything of that nature. The only thing they would do is what their role tells them to do. A
Yeah.
monthly report, a
Here,
case note.
go make 10 copies
Data.
of this. That's what they're gonna ask them to do.
They're
And
not gonna
by the
have
way,
them touch a grant.
And
They're
when they
not gonna-
start as a case manager in that agency, no
Yeah.
one is gonna come to them and say, we need you to write to a grant. No one,
Yep,
no
no,
one. It's not gonna happen.
no.
So I
And
think we
with
set them up.
fundraising, they're not involved in that either. That's usually a foundation of the agency, and maybe they'll have them come out and volunteer and help set up a tent. I'm not saying that to be mean. It's just that it's not what they're going to do.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
you know, when I think about the finances and this part of it, I think about grassroots, old school CSWE before 2008. Because when 2008 changed, it changed based on what was happening in our community. Students didn't have access to this stuff. They had access to it beforehand when I was in school, but not now.
You're gonna have a development director come to you and say, do you have a good story?
Yeah,
What's a good client story?
yeah,
Write it up. Oh, you worked with the kids? Can I have a copy of their artwork?
yeah,
Because that's gonna go great on my fundraising letter.
right.
They're not gonna touch it. And they need to understand how organizations are funded. And they need to understand that as an employee of an organization, they may be asked to collect data, to contribute to the
To
report,
the bigger picture,
to the
right.
bigger picture. So when you don't do that, you jeopardize funding for
You
your,
jeopardize funding
oh,
for
by
the
the way,
agency.
they're gonna
Right,
fire you.
right.
But other than that, but this grant writing thing is just, it makes no sense. And it puts them in a position of what, making shit up?
So
And I don't know.
I
It's just
I
like-
got rid of the grant in 320 because Kim asked me to, because
Mm.
it's the exact same assignment in 419. And I don't know if Jim, are you teaching 419 next?
Jim is gone. He had
Jim
to
had
meet
to,
with an
Jim had to
advisor.
leave.
Sorry,
But we
I
can
can't see
ask him when
everyone.
we can ask, these are quite, we can always revisit and ask questions
I'm
tomorrow.
just wondering, is he teaching 419 in the fall?
No, he's
No, he's
not.
teaching
Kim is. He's teaching.
Okay. So maybe this is something that Kim can start to phase out. I mean, she covers 20 something PBs in 419, which we're not scoring anyways in 419. So if she removes an assignment, that shouldn't impact. And it should, the only thing it should do is make her life a little bit easier
Right.
and confuse the students a little bit less. So maybe we just make sure that we talk with her about that. That's an option if she wants to start to transition away from that.
Yeah.
So
Well,
this is the
what we're gonna do, what I'm gonna do is I'm capturing all this. So what we'll do is we'll write up, like I'll write up all of our major decisions.
Yeah.
All of what our structure looks like, when we're gonna offer what class, and ultimately our electives and blah, blah, blah. So, and she'll get sent all of that information too, so that she can be, because that way she can start thinking about some of these things, like what you're saying.
Yeah.
Jessica.
I'm just putting it out there because I know that that's in 419.
419.
So in this, for the implementation portion, some of this stuff is also under social justice. So I think we need to kind of figure out how much we want to have in social justice at a level where there might be some sophomores taking the course, and how much do we want to keep in this class so that we make sure that we're covering macro in this class as well. And my thought is that in the social justice, we're looking more at like community organizing and coalitions. And then maybe in this course, we're looking more at the letter writing and stuff like that. But I don't know. I'm just
That
throwing-
would
I
make
like
sense.
the idea of the policy briefs being in this course.
Right.
And the fact sheets.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
I think coalitions and task force would be a safe thing to have in the other class because it's not cumbersome. It's identifiable, but policy related stuff I think would be too much for the other class.
Yeah.
I think that we should keep letter writing in both of them though, because I think that a lot of our students, even at the like the beginning phases, want to know what they can do. And
Okay.
writing a letter is something that all of our students can kind of do successfully. And it shows that they have some power, they have a voice.
Mhm.
And especially when we're talking about social justice, talking about using your voice to, stand up for those who are oppressed is kind of like a main, focus of that entire content. So I
Mhm.
think leaving that there would be important. But I also think that in later courses, we can go more in depth. It's more than just, saying, hey, this is what I think. What can you, like, now that you know more, what can we ask for more specifically? How can we support those arguments more strongly? How can, like, all those types of things.
Okay.
Well, I think that, political advocacy or policy advocacy, excuse me,
Mhm.
is that there's a process to that. And I would think that in our planning and I'm sorry, where are we? Social work and action, that, you could devise a plan to, whether it includes a policy analysis, a letter writing campaign, but there's a call to action. That's what policy and action is about. So that's like a little more deeper dive into it, as opposed to understanding. You have to understand the legislative and political process in the United States, at least, to even understand like how to do anything related to social justice.
Yep.
And that social justice is a multi-pronged approach. It's not just legislation. It's not just court action. It's a combination of people protest, legislative action, and court action. You know what I mean? Like
I think, yeah.
I think that, that one of them fits that second part fits well in social justice, whereas the other one is a way to implement social justice on a social work macro level.
Can we also agree to not do fake stuff? Like, I mean, listen, when I worked at Fredonia, I would say that our students are better students than the students at Fredonia in general. And they wrote a letter to their local politician about some topic that it was actually related to their field work. They had to pick a topic that was meaningful to them, related to their field work, write a letter, show it to their supervisor at their field work. I edited it and they had to like rewrite it. I had to approve it before they sent it, and then they emailed it to the person and blind copied me on it so I could see that they actually sent it. And several of the students got letters back from, whoever, and they were so excited that Chuck Schumer took a moment to send them. I mean, of course it was like the standard, like, thank you for contacting my office nonsense, but they were so excited. And then I had some students who their other option was to write an op-ed for the local newspaper. And if they didn't want to write a letter to a politician, they could write an op-ed, and the op-ed had to include certain things. And it was the same kind of thing. Like, I had to give them feedback. They had to rewrite it. I had to approve it before they sent it out. And then they sent it out and blind copied me on it. And some of the students' stuff got published, and they were like they were so excited that like their name was in the newspaper and that something they wrote like had an impact. And then a lot of the students were like, I didn't think I could actually do this. Like, now I know that I can do it. But right now, the letter writing that we have them do, it's a mock letter. They don't actually send it. It's already like for
I
the
made my
most
students
part, well, so you made them send it in 301, and then in 429 they're being told don't send it. It's a mock letter. Your writing's not good enough for us to send this out. And then I think they leave and they don't think that they can actually do it because they didn't actually do it. And so I don't know, it drives me nuts when we have assignments that are like, okay, then make up the data and then decide like what you would do. Or, you know, write this letter but don't actually send it. So I just don't think that we should do that.
I agree with you, Jessica.
Thank you, Amy.
Everything we should do should be productive and build upon each other.
If you're
Like
gonna-
in building, like in, if they were to actually send that out like they would in 301, they can add that to their portfolio. If that's
Yeah.
a senior idea to do, you know, these are the kinds of things that they could carry along with them and take with them and say, this is what I did in my years at Buffalo State Social Work Department.
Yeah.
I accomplished these things.
If they do it and it gets, you know, if it's an op-ed, then it can go on their resume.
right?
Post it on
Yeah.
our department
Yeah.
website. We can, you know,
Yeah.
tell the college how smart our students are.
I think you guys, I think this gets to the fundamental issue of if we really, and I don't think anyone thinks this, okay, so let me preface what I'm about to say, but I think that sometimes our actions can inadvertently send a message that you're not good enough and you're not competent. So if really what we want to do is, as I say when I'm training dogs, we train the dog and we set the dog up in a situation where they're successful.
Mhm.
And we keep building on that success. And pretty soon they go from, I was really scared to run up on that teeter to I own that teeter. And now I'm running master courses. Like you see them just like you see the kids grasping this idea that something they didn't think they could do. Like they wrote, for example, they said, you know, they're scared to death when they go to 424 and they understand that they're going to have to facilitate a group. And then they are even more scared because we have to record it. And then they have to talk about it and I get to see it and I get to look at it and they have to plan it and they have to do all this stuff with it. And obviously we walk them through the steps. We just don't say, oh, go make a group, figure it out. But they usually come either if they make it through the other side, which they all do, some better than others, but they all make it to the other side. And one of the things they say is, I never thought I could do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
That's an empowering thing for our students. It's empowering for them. Many of them believe they can't get up in front of a group and do a PowerPoint presentation. Many of them think they can't write, they can't do this. I'm not saying that they don't have to work at those things. But if we're setting them up to do something and then we say, oh, wait, but it's really not, you're not going to really do anything with it. You're just going to like, I'm going to look at it and then that's it. I think it sends the wrong message to the student. So if we ask them to do a thing, there should be a reason and they should see the end result. You know, it's like, why collect the data unless you're going to use it? Right? Like, what's the point of asking the questions of the client and
That's
collecting
difficult.
information if you're not going to use it? Like, if we're going to ask them to do something, then let's make it worthy of being asked to do it. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
I agree. I don't think we should make up data. I don't think we should write mock anything. I think if we're writing a letter to a legislator about an issue, we should prepare the letter, write the letter, and edit the letter, edit it again, and then send the letter.
Right.
What was I just gonna say? I don't remember. It might come back to me, but yeah, I mean, and this could be that writing assignment where they have to write it and then rewrite it and then rewrite it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It just made me think, and Karen, you might remember this. There used to be an oral, you know, like how we have the writing requirement, there used to be an oral requirement. So one of the classes required that students do some type of like oral presentation or oral communication. And the college apparently has gotten rid of it, but
Right.
it, for some reason, it just made me think of it when we were
Right.
having that.
But in all actuality, even if the college eliminated that, in most of our classes, there's an oral content anyway.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. It just made me think like, why would the college get rid of that? Our students
Right.
don't know how to.
Right,
Like with all the technology, like they don't know how to interact verbally.
right,
Um,
right.
okay, so sorry for that side track, but is there anything else in this section of implementation that we think needs to get removed or anything that we need to add?
Where did mindfulness go?
That's up under the foundations with
Gotcha.
Yeah.
self-care.
As long as it's somewhere. Okay.
Yeah, no, we're going to teach them mindfulness because that's part of emotional
Mhm.
intelligence, self-regulation, self-accountability, self-awareness.
Okay.
So that's all part of that. You know, those skills, what they learn in foundation, it will be reinforced after like the next class, the next class, the next class, but you know, we'll be able to spend some time teaching them those things. And then however it gets implemented in other classes, obviously that's cool too, but
I think as I look at termination, and I know you're probably not there yet, but part of our education for the students going into field, case in point, crisis services advocate program, when they go out there and they follow up with the client and do the services they do, it's on a shorter term basis versus a long term. So I think when you talk about closing a case or transferring a client, somehow, some way there has to be some kind of discussion to say to them that, you know, some of your clients you'll be done in 4 hours based on the internship environment you're in, or you'll be working with a client for a period of time. You might be doing something brief or longer. I think that clarity has to be there before they come to field.
yeah, that's a good point. I mean, we do talk about, um, you know, I haven't taught 423 in a while, but in assessment in 422, we talk about how you may only have one contact with a client.
Right,
That's it.
right,
So
right.
your job is to engage, assess, and try to provide, if it's, you know, that's where crisis management, you know,
Mhm,
working the crisis, getting them stabilized and get them to help kind of thing.
mhm.
That may be all you're going to be able to do. That's
Right.
so we do try to talk about that. We certainly can highlight that, Karen.
And then we'll follow up with it in the fall semester,
Yeah.
you know, because part of what we're challenged by is students comparing themselves to other students. And we have to knock that out and say, each of you are in different agencies for a reason. You have different roles for a reason. You follow different policies for a reason. Not everybody's going to do the same thing that you do, or you're not going to do the same thing that everyone else does.
Well, and I think that's one of the reasons why if we can really make this happen, that the micro, meso, macro on each class that we're doing, because some of our students, if we're staying kind of more on the micro level, for some of our students, they have placements that really doesn't fit exactly.
Hmm.
Because I used to, when I had 496, I created alternative scenarios for students
Hmm.
that, you know, we wanted them to do certain kinds of things because we were assessing practice behaviors in a certain way. But if they
Hmm.
had if they weren't, I don't know, for whatever reason, they didn't get a client or their practicum wasn't that type of practicum, then I built in alternatives for them. But so it's hard for them not to compare what they're doing with other,
Well,
you know
I
what I
get
mean?
that. Yeah, I understand that. I
Yeah.
totally get that. Yeah.
So,
Well, and I think, so I'm going to be completely transparent. I just got a text message. So I did check out of the conversation for a minute. So I apologize if this is like totally off in left field. But I think that one of the conversations that we could have, um, and this I think also goes along the same lines of us talking about the case management stuff, is that maybe crisis services is no longer a good field placement for our students based on what we want them to be able to do with clients.
Hmm.
But maybe we continue our relationship with crisis services in some other way. Like maybe that becomes a service learning component to the assessment class because they would be doing tons of assessments. Like
Hmm.
maybe, you know, so So I think looking at the different field placements and seeing, the ones that we have relationships with, like not, not just throwing them out, but figuring out how can we maybe use them in a different way, especially if we move in the direction of case management where we would want them to potentially have longer term relationships.
Well, the other thing I was thinking in my head is maybe having them have a different role in the advocate program. Maybe they can be a case manager in the advocate program as
Yeah.
opposed to
Yeah.
that crisis person. So maybe their role can change.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, I think that if, Karen, I think if I remember correctly, you like last fall, was it last fall? I don't remember. Well, maybe it was in the spring. I don't remember, but I could have sworn I remember you doing something like going through and doing an inventory
Hmm.
and taking a look at agencies where if we move to an emphasis on case management, develop
Mhm.
like, however we're going to do it, that you had like, I don't know, you had a
Most,
significant number of
yeah,
agencies.
significant who can do that. Yeah.
Yeah, so that you might transition some of your placements because our students are trained in a different way that would allow them to
Yep.
be able to move into these different ways. But I could have sworn you had a bunch.
I did. Yep,
Yeah.
I do.
And which takes, I know we're not on electives yet, and we've gone way past our 3:30 stop time, but one of the preliminary electives, we want to think about that whole case management focus
Yep.
and how we want to do that. I mean, I know we're going to talk about it in these courses. That is our micro work. But just to put that out there. So.
Well, yeah, that was my goal in the training for the agencies in August, begin to have that conversation to really say, we're looking at restructuring. Here are some restructuring ideas. What are your thoughts about this? What do you think of this in terms of field? Yeah, definitely going to take advantage of that time to get agency feedback.
Good.
So, yeah, I wasn't paying attention to the time, so I apologize because I just kept going down the list.
No,
But
that's fine. That's fine, Jessica.
since we're on the last piece of this class, is everyone good with the termination
Yeah.
stuff?
Yeah.
I think we're all okay. So that's awesome because tomorrow then we just need to talk about the evidence-based practice,
Capstones.
capstone projects.
Project.
Try to make a list.
So
And
tomorrow is evidence-based practice, capstone project.
And then I think
We need to talk about electives. We have
Yeah.
to talk about electives.
and just figure out. I definitely want some more information about like the 4+1 and stuff. So even just talking about like
Yeah, I want to talk about that too as well.
what other information do we need so that we can make a decision? Because then maybe we can get that information over the summer, kind of collect it, and then in the fall when we come back together, we'll have it. And
Well,
I can give you, I know that Andrea is working on pulling together for the adult education
program.
program, but
Public administration. Have you talked to public administration?
no, not yet, Karen, but I think we also need to talk to public administration as well.
Mhm.
Because we have had students move into public administration. They stay at Buffalo State and they go, there's a large percentage of students that go on to get their MSW if they're going to go to graduate school right away.
Right.
But not all of our students do MSWs. We've got
No.
masters
students
in public
that,
health at Buff State.
what's that?
Do we have a master's in public health at Buff State?
No.
No, it's a MPA, I think.
Okay.
It's public administration, because I bring NICA public administration and multidisciplinary studies once a year to
Yeah.
meet with the juniors to talk about the master's program.
So
I mean, I haven't had a chance to reach out to MPA, the Masters of Public Administration.
Yeah.
But and they may be willing, they may be interested in doing a 4+1, or they may not. It just depends on, they may have their hands full, but I think it's worth an ask.
Well, it is
It's
because
absolutely worth an ask.
we have two field 2 agency field people that teach in that curriculum.
Well, I'll touch base with you then, Karen,
Yeah.
about names and stuff. So, I mean, people that you might recommend that I talk to. So
Yeah.
that'd be great.
And then Dr. Jackson in the grad program.
Well, what grad program or the general overview of the grad?
Dr. Jackson is the overviewer of the multidisciplinary studies.
Oh, multidisciplinary studies, right. So I think if we wanted to pilot, the cool thing about, I'll just say this and then we can move on to tying up for today, but the cool thing about 4+1s
Yep.
is that you only need to approve them at the college level, period. And not even really, it's between the departments. And so it's in a relatively, like in comparison to like some of the other stuff that we have to get approved and through the systems, like a certificate takes a lot longer than a 4+1,
Oh, that's
a
cool.
lot longer, because you
Yeah.
have to run it all the way up. It has to go all the way up through SUNY.
Are you
Micro-credentialing,
serious?
yes, micro-credentialing and 4+1 are local. Like think about them
Oh, that's
local.
nice.
I know. So, for example, Andrew, the adult education, they've been wanting to do a 4+1 for us, and there may be room for that, and that may make a lot of sense. I just asked her to pull together sort of a prospectus to say what kinds, like if our students were to go into your program, tell me what a master's in adult education would help us do,
Wow.
right?
I'm a
Like,
little biased because my mother graduated from adult education and my
Oh.
daughter graduated from adult
adult
education.
education. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm saying that there's a whole lot of potential there, particularly like you want to go into prevention education and stuff like that. But I wanted her to pull it together because the way that Andrea talks about adult education, and they have a tennis, historically they've come from a social justice perspective and blah,
Right.
blah, 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 blah. So there's a lot of things that are nice overlap with social work.
Yep.
I don't know what the demand would be, but it's not really, it's kind of a low risk, low hanging fruit idea.
Right.
So it's something that we could pilot and see how it goes. And if we have room in our senior year, our second year, to accommodate the 2 courses that would be required if a student wants to move from undergrad into that program as a graduate. And we would not teach those courses.
And her classes are all online. That's the other benefit.
Yeah.
It's an online master's program.
I think she also has some classes too, Karen.
Okay.
But I can't remember exactly how it goes. But anyway, so that's what is intriguing and exciting about 4+1.
Yeah.
It also keeps them at Buffalo State. It's something familiar. Blah, 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 and all this sort of thing. So if people could think about what we did today, we did a lot of work today. And think about it, and then overnight, and Jess, if you could email me that really cool Buffalo State colored grid and that other little grid that you had, or if you can send that out to all of us.
This,
Yeah, that one. And then there was another one that one.
this.
Can
Yeah,
you send that one out to us?
yeah.
That'd be great. So take a look at the document, take a look at where am I going with it? I got distracted by a shiny thing. Just think about what we've talked about today. And when we come back tomorrow, think about electives, think about, as you're thinking about it in your own head, where, based on what where we're going, what are kind of the electives that we want to bring around. Okay. And we have our parking lot of additional questions, which is great, because there might be a lot of other kinds of ways to think about this, but let's just, because the electives, I think, will be a really exciting conversation as well, kind of how we think about that, whether it's looping in other departments or being allowed to take courses in other departments, whatever. But some of that will take some footwork if we decide to go in that direction to explore that. So it's 4:15.
Cool.
Thank you for everyone's work today. So I look forward to tomorrow. We might actually get through everything tomorrow. Yay, yay.
Tucker,
Let's do some happy.
Tucker.
Yay.
She said we might get through everything tomorrow.
What does Thumper say? Thumper says
Tucker lifted his head, put it back down, and
Yeah.
went back to sleep.
he doesn't care. He's like, it's irrelevant to me. It's irrelevant to me. So
It doesn't do anything for me. Not right now, anyway. He gave me a big yawn.
I'll send out the link for so it'll be a similar, same kind of time frame, 9:30 to 12, 12:30 to 3:30. You know, obviously if we go over, we'll adjust the time frame, but trying to be respectful and not go, you know, be respectful of your time and your stuff. So, okay. Any questions, thoughts, comments, closing thoughts?
No.
Criticisms? Good. Okay.
Good.
All right. Well, go have a good night, everybody. Take some time, worked hard. I'm gonna go down and find out what my puppies are doing. They've been way too quiet, so I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah,
what they've been
Tanya's
down
been
there
way too
doing.
quiet. I'm kind of nervous.
Yeah. Kids and animals, when they're too quiet, it means something's up. All right, you guys, I'll see you guys tomorrow.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye-bye.